cannabis love. Me, think of some knowledgeable guests. Disrupt! Disrupt America! Disrupt! Disrupt America! Disrupt! Disrupt America! Disrupt! Disrupt America!
Good morning.
Yo.
Wouldn't be another show if I didn't somehow.
Yo, no GMO. I'm one of a kind. One of a kind.
Brianne, me, Melissa, Vanessa. Yeah, no Thirsty Thursdays today.
The new.
No Pearson. We're gonna have a special episode today. Actually,
The new. Y'all like the new song? I'm kind of jealous, yo. I should have been in that song. I don't understand why Chris don't never. I could have had my mic. Your mic is fucked up.
Is it? Isn't it always though?
You guys really need some new equipment. Hey, Willie, mind your business.
Interestingly enough, Willie, I set up a.
Willie, mind your business.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you guys. What's wrong with it?
We work with what we can work with. Unless you're gonna be buying it, mind your business. Mike's.
I don't know. We'll try that. Maybe that works.
Mike's mic is always messed up. Why is it always your mic that's messed up but not mine?
I like it when people message me and are like, "Hey, you're doing a show, but why don't you go into your messages and look at your messages?"
Well,
Yes.
Today's show is going to be very interesting because yesterday we had a lot of stuff go on.
Well, and just to set it up, MassCan held an emergency meeting last night.
Oh, yeah.
The intent of it, I think, was to bring up a couple of issues. One was the removal of...
Shout out to Brian. Brian said the only thing that we was all thinking the whole time, resign. Right when he was like, Brian, it's your turn. He was like, yo, I just want you to resign. That's straight to the point. But, then there was some people that I was like, apologizing for him.
But then interestingly,
like, what?
that guy Brian also abstained on all of the votes for Bill, except for the votes where he was willing to vote to benefit Bill. That was really interesting.
Hey, just listening to Bill, yo. Yeah. Come on, yo. My man's was like, he was coming up with, look, I ain't never seen somebody have so many excuses. It was very interesting to see somebody have so many excuses for somebody who preaches what they preach.
Well, and so we're really, really lucky today because we, sort of last minute after the show, after Maskin's meeting last night, we decided to reach out to a bunch of folks. So we're super lucky because we have Asia Atwood, we have Goldi Piff, we have Ominique Garner, and we have Jordan Clark all joining us. And then a little later, we're going to have...
It's a dangerous combination.
We're going to have Rico out from L.A., who's part of L.A. Normal. He's a director out in L.A. Normal. He'll be coming on later on. But we're really lucky to have a bunch of folks come out because, even though I'm a vocal person against racism and especially within the cannabis community, it's, it really, I should be, and we all should be doing more listening, right? All us white folks. There's a lot of us that are talking. There's a lot of us that have opinions on this, but really we should be doing more listening. And so we're really lucky to have a whole squad of like really smart Black cannabis people on today that can actually give us some insights and opinions on racism and cannabis from their perspective, and maybe also provide some of their own thoughts around what happened last night with MassCan, if they happen to watch it or keeping up with it. So first, and by the way, everyone, welcome. Thanks so much for coming on. And I think rather than do the whole, tell us about yourself, I think it might be better if we get right into it. So, Asia, I know that you have a time constraint, and I appreciate you joining us this morning. So to be respectful of your time, welcome and thanks for joining us. And maybe you could start out by giving us some of your personal insights on racism and in the Massachusetts cannabis industry, and then if you have some thoughts about what went on last night.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me, both of you. I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts and opinions after last night, and just kind of my thoughts and opinions that I've been holding on to over the last several weeks, and what my thoughts are on how we're responding to what we're seeing, especially when it comes to racism, not just in the cannabis, not just because I know we say like racism in cannabis. Racism isn't in the plant. Racism is in the industry, and it's everywhere. And it runs so deep on so many levels. And I was watching last night, and I was kind of thinking to myself, I don't know how long it'll take for people to understand that they have to do more work, more learning before they try to come up with solutions, because a lot of the solutions that people are asking for seem to be Band-Aid solutions to me. And they're very surface, symbolic. And when and I don't want to take up too much of the show's time, but I wanted to share kind of what was on my mind this morning when I woke up with everybody. If that's okay, it'll take me like 3 to 5 minutes. I don't want to.
Oh no, please do.
Your audience.
No, please do. Please do.
I woke up this morning and I was reminded of this talk that I sat in on in 2018. It might have been 2017. It was right after Trump was elected, and my mother-in-law, who is a European woman, who some would consider to be a white woman, sent me a link to a talk that she thought that I would be interested in. And the name of the talk was called the 10 Brothers Voyage, the 10 Brothers Voyage. And it was about a slave ship that came from Cape Cod that she had discovered kind of in her own learning. And when I kept thinking about that story, and I'm like, why is that story in my mind so much? And I think it's because it reminded me, after I looked at the story again and I kind of refreshed my memory on what I heard, and it reminded me what we're dealing with right now. I think some people don't understand that racism has dated back for millennia, and it's a tool that was designed to divide and to figure out how to control power. So we're really all kind of being put into this system and used as pawns, as cogs, to be against each other, in my opinion, based on what I've been reading. So when this story was great, because this woman from the Cape, she's a white woman herself. Her name is Meadow Hilly. She's still alive. This was 2018. This is recent. We have all this new history that's available to us now. She found out while walking through a graveyard in the Cape that some of the tombstones said, something like John Smith, who died in Africa somewhere, or John Smith, who died in the West Indies. And she started to dig and find out, why are people in the 1700s that supposedly lived on the Cape dying in all these other continents? So she started doing more digging and found out that the African slave trade had a really great, the Africans, New England was a cog, like a key piece in the African slave trade. And there were 10 brothers who were white gentlemen of the time, back in the 1800s. This is 1888, who got all their capital together. They had money. And these are prominent names. These 10 brothers, if you do the research, if you look up this story, the woman's name is Meadow Hilly. Look it up. 10 Brothers Voyage. This is history that's being discovered. And prominent names like Elijah Cobb, Joseph Mayo Jr., Mayo Clinic. Does that sound familiar to anybody? These are names that have been in the industry in New England for quite some time. They got together, 10 brothers, and bought a ship and used that ship, and they used it for the slave trade. And the reason why she was able to find all this information was because it was part of a scandal. They actually brought yellow fever back to New England, and a bunch of people died. So she was able to dig up all this information and piece it together because of that scandal. And the reason why I came back to this story and it was heavy on my head was when I looked at the international slave trade again, it reminded me that New England was a key piece. The Northeast, a lot of people, I think that it was only in the South, that we only had slaves in the South. slavery was a part of the North, and the international slave trade, we weren't able to ship bodies across the waters back in 1808. So you were able to have slaves on the continent, but the international slave trade was shut down in 1808. 10 years later, these 10 brothers get together and they decide, we're going to run a voyage. Well, what were they running? They were running rum and goods to Africa, trading that for bodies, taking those bodies, shipping them to the West Indies, and then trading that for sugar to bring back for rum. And once the international slave trade got shut down in 1808, 10 years later, now we have people who are behind the scenes in what some will consider to be an illicit market, moving bodies and making money. This has nothing to do about it being legal or illegal. It's industry, it's cash, and it's money. And New England is a part of the system too. So I think a lot of people think that that's just something in the South. But the issues that we see up here in the North run so deep because it's been kind of, sugar coated, if I could use that term, and it's really below the surface. So to me, once we brought money into cannabis, we brought in that system, that industry, that kind of racism that's used to divide and to control power.
Well, and I think that I think to your point, I think sort of up here it's a lot more like low key. The racism is a lot more low key, right? Which I think is actually a lot more damaging in the long run, because when you have overt racism, folks that don't agree with that, it's very easy to recognize, and it's very easy to either shut out or combat or bring to light or whatever, or ignore whatever somebody's decision is. But when it's more low key, it's very difficult sometimes, especially for other white people, I think, to sort of be able to recognize it. And at least what I'll say is that I felt like there was a lot of low key racism, or sort of like low key racist responses by both by folks on the board in that meeting last night and in the comments. And I think a lot of people I don't know if it's an education thing. I don't know if people want to be good and they just aren't sure how to do that. But, and rather than me talk about it, Asia.
No worries.
Do you have any maybe either thoughts around, what can white folks do? What can we do better? What can we do to help?
Well, I think I don't, just to be clear, I don't have an expectation that everybody will try to be better or that everybody will even feel the need to get better. But I do think that there are some people that are aware and want to try to get better. So I'm only talking to those individuals. Like I don't want to, pretend as if everyone's going to agree with what I have to say. But there are some people that are in alignment, and I'm talking to those people. And I suggest that those people do a lot more reading and listening, like you mentioned. And you're right, like it is very below the surface here in New England. One of the things that I think from my personal experiences in growing up is I've been in all different types of school systems, and I've had, classes with all different types of people, all different classes. And I spent a lot of time in what's considered to be white America. I've worked in it. I'm an engineer. I mean, I've spent a lot of time around white males, and a lot of times I'm not seen, I'm ignored. So the way that I have to kind of walk within these systems is I have to be very observant, and I watch and I try to figure out how can I get in? Like what's my position here? But in doing that, you observe people and you pick up body languages, you pick up emotion, like there's emotional intelligence. There's just cues that some white people give off that let you know that they don't see you as a human being. They don't appreciate your value in you. And we can, debate whether or not, they do or don't. But I decided to choose for myself that I'm no longer going to participate with those people who don't see the value in me, who don't, who even if I'm just picking up on signals, they may not have called me, the N-word. They may not have called me a bitch. They may not have called me like something. They may not have been obvious about it, but I'm sensing something from you that you don't see me as a person. And it's all good. You don't have to. I don't have to allow your vision to be the truth for me. So I would accept for myself that I have a stance. I am a human, I'm a sovereign individual. I decide to turn around, walk away, and to build my own system with people who want to get down with what I'm trying to get down with. So I just suggest that everybody is do more research, but also when you start to understand that these systems aren't for you, have the courage and the bravery and the audacity to create your own systems, to build your own systems.
Asia, one thing that I'm curious about is, at least initially, your thoughts on the meeting from last night. There has been first of all, I believe that Normal National has revoked the charter for MassCan, and so, but there's a lot of people out there that are, even with that knowledge in place. There's a lot of people that are sort of like, well, what can we do to save MassCan? So there's also been calls out there, though, from people to start something fresh. In fact, Normal's post that they made last night was calling for a new chapter, like if folks in Massachusetts were interested in starting a new chapter. So what are your thoughts around that? What's your reaction to that?
My reaction from last night, and I'm not a member of MassCan. I haven't been. I do have friends that are a part of that are members, so I know of MassCan, and I'm not huge into like big parties and shit. So you don't see me at the Boston Freedom Rally. It's just not my thing. So I am coming at this from an outsider's perspective. But my gut when I walked away was this doesn't feel like the organization that they say they are. And it was just the feeling that I got from the board of directors. I mean, this isn't new. Last night, I understand that there was some history to this, back in 2019. There were some issues with some of the members on the board. So I think, unfortunately, it may have started as something, but it is no longer what it started as. And if people decide that they want to build something new, if they decide and figure out that this organization isn't safe for them, isn't for them, that's okay. They should be allowed to start something else. And I'll also say that, let people have their organizations. Don't fight the systems that aren't for you. If the system isn't for you, don't fight it, ignore it, and create your own. So that's where I'm at with this.
And, I think also just because I think there's a lot of white folks out there that want to be supporters, but they're sort of struggling. I think like there's a lot of folks that are trying to figure out the right stuff. So here's what I would say is just more from a learning perspective. Do you think that the MassCan board's response last night was an adequate response as white people who are supposed to be allies or advocating for Black people? And really, and here's just to give some context. There's a lot of folks that believe that everyone involved, not everyone, but at least that certain people involved were absolutely doing sort of giving the right response. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm a white person, so I'm not the right person to really comment on that. And so I want to know. I mean, for instance, I thought it was woefully inadequate all around. But if it wasn't, maybe I need to reset my sort of lens on this. And so I'd like to know your opinion on it.
I don't know. I don't know that I want to say that it was adequate or inadequate. To me, it was as designed. Like they were there for a couple of years. Like people know each other. This isn't, I didn't want to sit there and pretend as if this is all new discovery to me. So the response was on par with what you would expect those people to say. I don't know that it's on par and acceptable for me personally. I don't want to, be a part of the organization, but maybe some other people do. And I don't want to speak for my white brothers and sisters. Decide what's best for you. But I know for me personally, I didn't feel, and I wrote in the comments, it didn't feel, it doesn't feel, and it hasn't felt welcoming.
Well, and I was just about to ask if like maybe if a better way for me to ask was like, do you felt like folks were trying to create a safe space for Black folks within the organization, and it sounds like that might not be the case.
I think some individuals were, but I don't think that the organization was. And I think there's two different things. I think there's a culture with the organization that has an effect and an impact, and then there are individuals that were on that board that said different things that might, individually, I feel safe with you, but I might not feel safe with the organization. And that's what I'm getting at. Is like, it's the organization created themselves, and they're, they are who they are. And if you don't like it, then build your own.
Yep. Okay. And Asia, I do want to be respectful of your time. I think you may have stayed even a little bit longer than you told me you might be able to. Are there any other points, or is there anything else that you want to make sure that we hear today?
I think I'm looking forward. Well, I hope this will be recorded, because I'd like to check out what the other people on the panel have to say, because they probably have had more interaction with Mass Can than I might have. And, they might have more context to put to why it doesn't feel welcoming. But from my gut, and again, just kind of being around, white Americans, and I'm married to a white woman, so I know them well. I know you can sense from some people who accept you and some people who don't. And it's just kind of like a gut thing for me right now. So I don't want to name names. I think it's the organization.
Well, and just so you know, Asia, in addition to the panelists that we have on right now, we should also be having, hopefully Shannon Jones will be coming on later, and she's actually a former director for Mass Can, so I know she had some direct experience as a person of color within their organization. So we're excited that hopefully she'll come on. And then we're also having a fellow from LA Normal, Rico. I don't want to mess up his last name, so I'm not going to say it right now. But Rico was actually on the other day. He's a director from LA Normal out on the West Coast, and they've been experiencing issues there. But he was also involved with the communication around Mass Can to national, and there was a really interesting response there that I believe we'll be able to share, where nationalists initially was just like they responded about money. They didn't respond to anything having to do with like the racism part. They basically responded by saying, "Oh, well, Mass Can hasn't given us money from the Freedom Rally for years now." And Rico was horrified at the response that was really soft. Like, in other words, it sort of made, all of a sudden it made a little more sense to him that, when you have folks that are enabling, and I get it, this is a systemic thing throughout society. This isn't just the cannabis industry, but I don't know, it's just, so much of it feels icky, and I think that we need to talk about it, and then we need to do something about it. But really, I feel in the long run strongly that there needs to be white advocates that can stand up and actually do something about this, because Black people can't convince white racists to not be racist. Like, the nature of that relationship is such that Black people are basically powerless when they're trying to communicate with a racist like that. So it really takes, I think, white men in the long run to actually stand up and tell other white men that this is all very highly inappropriate and isn't acceptable. And I think more folks need to come out and be able to feel like they can align with that. And so I think, hopefully, I'm really hoping that a new nonprofit organization is going to be made. I don't even know whether or not it should be affiliated with Normal National, but it should really be, made up mostly of people of color and women, because right now those are the marginalized groups still within, especially within cannabis, a lot of the issues that are still happening with cannabis. And
sorry. Can I cut it? But did you hear
please do. I shouldn't be talking.
What she said? Did you hear what she said?
I didn't.
I was like, people are talking about creating their own thing. So like your framing of like, oh, well, we need women and people of color to come to this space so that it's an inclusive space when people are saying we're doing our own thing. So I'm just like, well, wait, why are you offering, like, propositioning it that way as if like that's what people want? When it should, when I would frame it as, if I wanted to get people to come in, I would be like, because you hit it, white men need to do the work, but then the work isn't, hey, women and people of color come into this space and do the work for us. Like, you have to do the work first so that people can want to come in. And that comes in how you tell the story and proposition it. And that's ultimately like, yo, I get it. I'm sure you know some of these people. I don't know them, but I have white family too. And it's like, so I get it. It's hard. When people say it's hard, no, I love you, but I don't love you enough to like care about you enough to keep doing this because it's not healthy for me. So I don't respect you. So it's hard I get how it's hard to love somebody and not respect them, but I got a brand, I got a persona to keep. I have core values. So if I'm soft on my brother because I won't use the word racist. I'll say he's not anti-racist because words matter. He is not anti-racist when he should be. You're right, Michael Dube. But white men are only people who get, like, we need some famous people, I guess, some famous white men to go on TikTok or to do
I was saying, I'm not soft on racism.
Right.
If you're racist, you're racist. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. Like I said, a lot of people are racist and don't know it. You have work to do. So Jordan, your brother is racist.
Yeah.
Point is, and he has work to do. So we could use
and I
the
will
word
not bring him around because, like, that's where it's like, I know how to, meaning it's not that I don't want him to be around. And to the point too, I guess I want to apologize. One of the guys, baby, I don't want to call him baby boy, Jeffrey or Jonathan.
Yeah, I do want to interrupt and just dismiss myself real quick, guys, because I do have to go, and I didn't want to just end on peacing out everybody. But I want to come back and listen to this recording because I really want to hear what everyone else has to say. And I think this is the work, is listening to other people and letting them decide what they want to do. And that might be something that's separate. It just might be. So I love and peace to everybody. Thank you very much, guys, for having me.
Asia, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Bye,
Radio. I was trying really hard. I was like, I'm gonna let Goldi and Ominique speak first, but I couldn't. I was just like, yo, listen, you're not hearing her.
That's right.
Well, and Jordan, I think that's why it's important that you're here. Because I don't know that you've had direct experience with MassCan before, but I do think that you're an excellent mediator and the right person to sort of make sure that we're and especially me as the white dude in the room, that I'm mindful of my words. And anyway, but that all said, why don't we go over to Goldi? Goldi, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. It's wonderful to see you.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me. So this is interesting. The whole MassCan thing. And just like Asia was saying, this is nothing new. It's funny to see how many people are acting like, wow, he's really doing this? MassCan's doing this? Oh my God. Listen, this has been going on for years now. They were called out last year. We decided as Village Piff that we wouldn't participate in the Freedom Rally because they took a stance with the straight parade. And we're not a part of anything that isn't inclusive to all. And maybe that's a luxury we have being in the position we are, being Black, that we see it for what it is and you just don't. And it was that unwelcoming feeling that continuously haunted you. They'd come to you when they needed a Black face, someone to go there. And I hear people saying, well, there were Black people at the Freedom Rally. We had Black speakers and Black entertainment. It's more than that, guys. It's way more than that. But that was the past, and we're looking forward to moving forward in any direction. I'm glad that they've shut down that chapter. And if Normal does survive and come to Massachusetts and rebuild itself, I think it will be fantastic. That doesn't mean I want to be necessarily a part, because we have to remember it wasn't the board that gave him this power. Members voted him in. So that says a lot about the people that associate within that circle. And for me, that's just not the cup of tea. Yes, I'm not a voting participant in their thing, but I made sure and checked in last night because it was that important to me, because this is something that they've done time and time again. They don't come into our communities. They do nothing. Education-wise, in their heyday, yeah, they were great for the white community, but we've never experienced that as the Black community, and it's time things change.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's sort of like, I don't know, at least and Jordan, I'm trying to make sure that I'm listening, and it's like some of what I'm hearing, it's sort of like an unfortunate state for white people, because it feels like at a certain point stuff has been damaged to the point where like the trust has been broken so much that it just seems easier sometimes for people of color to be like, it's better to just like
I don't like
to try to do our own thing, or try to separate,
I
or
mean,
try
no,
to just.
that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Like how you're framing it, white people are not the victim. Sorry, white people are not the victim in racism.
Oh no.
Exactly.
What I think what I'm trying to say is that like
you're trying and versus failing, right? So this is where I'm trying to be where you're at, but you literally made white people in your undertone of like, well, it's so hard for white people. Like I get it. Quote Baldwin when you want to say that. Baldwin said, it's not white people's fault. For hundreds of years, they've had to believe this, right? So that's where it's like the framing of like they were duped. I get that's where your undertone is going, but like white people are not the victim of racism. So you didn't say that. It's a feeling from a storyteller to a storyteller in the words that then get lost in translation as to like, well, why are you telling the story about racism that way? When like, because it's like you care about these. That's what it's like. We do it innately. Sorry, Ominique, because I thought this was.
And again, always feel free to smack me when I'm.
Well, and that's what like I like the first part thing, because so as a teacher, I would give points to students who corrected me, but then all of a sudden you create like this chaos where then everybody just wants to correct you about everything, and they're fourth graders. So like, no, my shoelace being tied does not mean you need to correct me. I saw it. I was just waiting. So no, you lose a point. That was incorrect. And so it's like you have to teach people when to check people, and white people have not created the space. They don't say what you literally just said, which was, thank you for like checking me. Now, I'm not a violent person, so I would prefer if you didn't say that like slap me, because I'm like, oh wait, why does he feel like I'm slapping him when like I'm just trying to enlighten you? And that's where, like,
and I just love the fact that you call that out, Jordan, because as Black people, when we call things out, we just have like a tone. We have a tone in our voice, and when we're passionate, and then some people receive that as anger or this or that or hate, and that's
it's emotional intelligence.
Microaggression. That's a tone. Yep. Like that's you oppressing me as a Black woman.
Yes.
And over again, we get oppressed. Black men don't speak and stay quiet and listen more because they're worried about their tone and how that's going to affect someone else. Often. So I'm just thinking about things like that, and yeah.
But that's my privilege too, though, that like I was socialized to be a heteronormative white man. Like I was socialized to be like my older brother. So when I saw the world like through the lens, like I'm sure Mike, maybe you can relate, but like white people just don't talk about race. So imagine being the first non-white person in your family, and no one says anything about it. And that's where it's like, oh, well, everybody thought they were doing the right thing. But then I didn't understand why people didn't want to play with me, or why my brother got this versus this. And maybe it wasn't a race thing. Had we talked about it, had we created space where I felt like I could be heard, that's just like the macro scale. My family drama is really the America's drama around understanding like the privilege of being like controlling the narrative. And that's why, like, white women, that's why I tried to frame it where I was like, Loriana, I don't know how to say people's names, sorry. Lorna. I really felt for her. I don't know her, but like the way David spoke to her in his tone, and then the way she responded. So I was fearful. I was angry that he talked to her like that, but then I respected her and how she replied. It reminded me of my aunt and my mom and my grandma, and like the white women I know who have the patience to like check a white man in a way where like she didn't humble leadership. She didn't humiliate him. But at the same time, I was like, oh no, she got him though. He got the message. Like, and that's what it's like. He failed to create space for white women. Why would I think that he's going to care about like my feelings as an openly gay Black man who's like has a disability? And this is the people who call to reach out to me. And that's where it's like, I shouldn't have to tell you that like, well, based on your LinkedIn message, I knew I didn't want to talk to you. but then the rest of the world made me feel bad. And so I reached out. I created space for you to be imperfect, but I don't have to. Black people do not have to. So that's why I'm afraid for my white family and my brother. I love my brother. I do. I don't respect him. I love him. But that's hard because, well, now that love means that I can't bring him around because, he would not last. He would not survive. And I mean that out of love, though. Like it's a reflection of me. I failed to do my job as a younger brother to use my emotional connection with him to like prepare him for this world. And it started when we played video games. It started when I let him change the rules. And every time a white person let boys will be boys, like, oh, well, he's just doing like all the excuses that we give for white men. It's our own fault as a society. I'm not blaming black people for that. I'm blaming like me as like his brother. Like I had an opportunity to help him and I failed. But not everybody is owed that. White people are not owed that.
Ominique, tell me what you thought about last night.
So I hopped on at the end last night, but I was disgusted and I was like in awe by Catherine and baby boy Jeffrey. One, Catherine always acts so confused and I don't know what's going on, and it's complete bullshit. As a white old woman, when they act like they don't know what's going on, those are the women that get us black men, black children killed. Oh, I didn't know. When she knows what's going on, she knows what we were asking her to vote on. I didn't like that she was like unaware of what was going on, at least. And we sent her. Well, first, let me start back. We met with her before the counteracting the straight parade happened. And she was talking about the Freedom Rally and wanted the community to be a part, black people, of course, and wanted us to speak. And we said, okay, if we got a table, it's not just us, we're bringing the community. So we're going to have some artists there. We're going to have all types of people. Other entrepreneurs will be at that table with us. She was like, okay. And then she asked us for a list of people. We gave her a list of 11 people, including New Jersey Weed Man, to come to the event. Then later on find out, well, actually next day she contacts us because she didn't feel comfortable reaching out to those black people and wanted us to reach out to them to come. So that was a turn off right there. And we're like, huh. So we didn't reach out. Then we found out, the whole thing that they were going to be doing the straight parade. Well, Samson was doing the straight parade. And we were like, we're totally against that. If you're against one of us, you're against all of us, sent a letter to them. Well, before sending a letter, called Catherine and told her, like, this is what we're hearing. And, he needs to speak out. You guys need to speak out. Show us where you stand, And she says, well, we don't like to call people out. And, he revoked or something. He's not racist, all this stuff. I mean, we don't like to call people out. So point is, us as Village Piff, we typed up something, we sent it to Jordan. Jordan put his little tweaks into it, and then we sent it back to them and let them know we're just not okay with their movement, and them standing against one person is standing against all people. If you're fighting against gay people, you're fighting against immigrants, then you're fighting against black people. You're fighting against one of us, you're fighting against all of us. And because of that, we called up those people and told them don't attend, or that we weren't attending, and it's up to them if they want to attend. So I just want to say, one, they do not create spaces and they're not comfortable coming into our community or talking to our community. Then they also had another black entrepreneur that was supposed to speak that day. And I felt like they felt some type of way because of everything that was going on. And that black entrepreneur didn't even end up speaking like they said that he would speak. Another thing is they are the Freedom Rally. I heard about the Freedom Rally. I'm black, I'm from Boston, but I never knew about Mass Can. Let's be honest. I never knew about Mass Can. Let's talk about youth homelessness. That's in the center of downtown. That's right where the rally is. Homelessness is it's everywhere in Boston, but I'm talking about like the shelters and stuff right downtown, right there. Everyone smokes. Everyone goes to the Freedom Rally. Are they educated on the policies, the bills, everything going on, getting into this industry? No. Have they ever even sat at the Education Village tent and listened to a session? No. Are there people reaching out to that community to educate them? No. Mass Can altogether is just did a horrible job, and then hearing about other EEs reaching out to them and saying they need support, and Mass Can saying, oh, well, you got to pay me this amount for me to come down and support you. And we're EEs and we just come and support other EEs just to support for free. That's our loss because that's gas that we lose out on and that's time that we lose out on. And honestly, usually it's product because we're giving out free product and resources and knowledge. So, and yet we got to pay them in order to come help us, and they're supposed to do this. So it's just like they're not connected to our community, never were. And I'm always wondering, like, what were they supposed to do? Because are they working on any of the policies that are affecting the black community? You know what I mean? That are affecting those that are incarcerated right now. You know what I mean? There's nothing. How are we working on the HEAs? How are we working on getting those that are criminalized? And the fact that people that have a record for cannabis can't even be entrepreneurs. Some of them can't even be entrepreneurs in the cannabis space. So they got to move to the hemp space. Or they're just not even messing with it altogether because they don't trust the system. Why are they not working on policies that have to do with racial inequities? You know, there's nothing.
They can't. They don't.
Well, yeah, like you said, they can't because of, like, they were upset when Jordan kept making comments about the board not being diverse. And Dave kept saying, we're very diverse.
I want to acknowledge one thing because I didn't know, and this is where it's my bias, where my brother is phenotypically white. We have the same parents, so he has the same black father as I do. And that's where, like, we even have, like, the 23andMe DNA, and I was like,
wait, don't apologize. The baby boy is white. When he fills out a survey, he identifies as a white man. He didn't say he's black.
Hold on. I want to create space for the white passing black folk. White passing black folk who historically played an important role. Because I remember, and this is where it comes from. I'm thinking of I'm thinking of one person though. This is why.
And I'm thinking about Baby Boy saying that he's not speaking on his behalf.
I believe this is where, like, I want to create space for him to be an imperfect black person though, because my brother is white passing. He's still black, and I, as a black person, can give him that space and that power and say, "Yo, be careful now," because that's my brother. And, like, if you come for him, yeah, I know he white passing, and, like, we make fun of him and call him whipped cream and shit, but you can't do that. Like, we get to do that because he's my brother. And then that's where it's like, we failed to create space for the white passing members to play their role in society, because my brother can convince a lot of his Trump support, whatever. Like, if one day he sees a light and is just like, you know what? Like, hey, y'all, maybe we should change our behavior because, like, I don't know, I want to, like, be a part of my family. And my family doesn't want me to, like, hang out with them. And Jordan has strategically told everybody that if I don't, like, apologize for certain things, that, like, yeah, maybe that's what I'm doing. Maybe it's not what I want. But at the end of the day, I didn't know that. And me not knowing that said, I treated him like every white man. And that's where it's like, that is a bias. I failed to speak from a place of enlightenment. And I have no problem being humble. I'm apologizing because I was wrong, not because, like, he's white. I didn't do that for my older brother enough growing up when, like, I failed to create space for him to be black. Like, it was easier for him to be white, and I got mad at him for it. And now it's like, yo, that man was speaking with emotion and emotional intelligence. So at the end of the day, I was just happy to see a man speaking with emotion.
No.
And then, like, that's where I'm coming from.
I feel like everyone has to play a role, and I'm going to hold people accountable. He wasn't speaking with emotional intelligence. He said he wasn't speaking on his behalf. If he identifies or has family that is black, then he would feel our pain and he would speak up on the inequities and on shit that's unjust. And that's not what he did. He spoke up and said, I'm not speaking on my behalf. I'm speaking because the members are saying this. And I have to say because the members. He knew he'd be knocked down as a board member because the members are saying something totally different. Not because he knew it wasn't just or because his family's black and he feels like, oh, I'm black, so it's unjust. But it's because of people are looking at where I'm at.
Problematic men to be imperfect, because I'm sure he has not had a lot of opportunities to master his emotional intelligence. Particularly, we saw it. Bill was threatening him with, like, a voicemail or something. And
I'm not clapping. I'm not giving them claps for things that they belong doing.
And this is where I do believe he said, if I am not the right person, I will step down. That's humility. So again, when a man says that he's going, like, hold him accountable, absolutely. Like, I'm not forgiving him for his sin.
This is after not saying anything after every other meeting, like I said.
That's Ominique. That's where it's like we have two different roles to play. As a woman, absolutely, you see him through a different lens, hold him accountable. But as a man, I want to create space to remind women that we need to, maybe he should be in the back learning some lessons. I agree. Like, if those are true, he failed to live up to the core values that I saw. That doesn't mean I didn't see them. And that's what it's like. We got to create that space, but then be clear in setting those boundaries so that Ominique, you shouldn't have to do anything with like this person. You should not have to like enlighten him and educate him. Women shouldn't have to do that job for men, period. I agree. But I also want to just make sure that we are creating space, because that's when people go crazy and start blowing shit up and shoot people because they don't think that they can fit in. And that's where it's like a fear of, or they kill themselves.
Black people, we never fit in. I never fit in as a black woman with
again,
disabilities.
we can't have more empathy for our
I'm just
oppressor,
saying,
but
no
that doesn't mean we
excuses.
don't
Yeah,
have
no
empathy.
excuses, no empathy for my oppressor.
We can't have more empathy, but that doesn't mean we don't have it, because then we become the oppressor. White people are, I promise you, people in my family are afraid that black people are going to show up and kill them unless like they put their nephew out front to say, hey, he's mixed, please don't shoot us. I dead ass though, like I have, because like that is a real white fear. And so it's like, oh, well, y'all just reading the body language wrong. Like no one's going to hurt you if you just say, hey, how are you? Like you have to teach people how to interact with people in different worlds. Their world has always been, oh, well, I don't want to talk to you, so I'm not going to. And it's like, oh, well, black people are real friendly. Like, you should just say hi. But maybe
I
like,
don't have to. Yeah, so I get it.
that's what's like, maybe don't touch their hair. Like, I literally will tell them things not to do because I know they're going to do it. And that's what's like, I feel like I'm preaching, but it's ultimately, it shouldn't, it's not your job, Ominique. That's why I'm like, that's why I feel you. But at the same time, let's not become the oppressor in how we communicate.
Wait, let me just pause. I feel like I'm not becoming the oppressor by calling out that it's not okay for this man who looks white and identifies and fills out a survey and says he's a white man. For him to now, when we're talking about diversity on a board, to say, oh, well, I come from a minority family. Or no, that's not okay. And I'm calling it out, period. And it doesn't mean I'm not okay with diversity or teaching people. It's calling shit out for what it is. It's not okay if you fill out a survey and you identify as white and you check it off as white. And every other time you never mention being black, and now we're talking about this board being diverse, and now you want to mention that your family's black. It's not okay.
Okay,
that's
hold
all
on.
I'm saying. But I get everything else you're saying.
Let me just
I
interrupt
hope
here
I didn't
for a
communicate
second.
that I called you
Hold
the
on.
oppressor. I just meant
Jordan, I'm sorry. Can I just say one thing? Let me just make clear. Baby boy always says that he's black, and it shocks people because he has the blue eyes and the light hair and light skin. I get what my daughter's saying. We have, my youngest daughter is white skinned just like baby boy, but it's understanding the position that you're in and the power that you have behind it. So when you're stating your concerns and saying, because I'm biracial, it kind of negates everything that you've said. I'm not questioning whether someone's black or not. I just think you have to be careful about how you use it. And last night, again, how Ominique said, he was saying he doesn't speak for himself, he was speaking for the community. Well, I, as a black woman, would have loved to see if he he's a black man in his eyes, then he needed to speak from that space. But bigger than that is, last night wasn't just the problem. You guys broke bread with these people. Time and time again. You went to how many meetings with him? I never became a member of MassCan for that reason. I could not sit at the same table as these people speaking this nonsense. And then to defend him and say that Samson isn't a racist, it's just his free speech. Look, I don't get down like that. I don't want to occupy space in that territory. So if they go on and build, that'll be great. But again, we have to remember that the members had a lot to do in this. We can't just lay all the blame on the board, because there were black members in the past, Judy, Shannon, I think Chief, part of, and I'm not sure, but there's been a few, you know what I mean? But it's just not welcoming, and it doesn't mean that we're asking people to roll out a red carpet for us. We feel that ice in the air, the silence when we walk into the room, or that aura that you give off when we're standing next to you, just all those things. And hopefully we can work together and really figure out this cannabis community. I personally can't say that I'm going to focus on the MassCan thing, but we have some real race relation issues within the cannabis industry, and it runs deep from the government on down. So this isn't a one-time conversation or a 1 month conversation. This has to be an ongoing hard work building people's feelings get hurt. That's a part of rebuilding. We all are going to take hits where we're like, damn, you feel like you were attacked. But that's what happens when we get called out on things. But there's no malice behind it. That's all I wanted to say.
And before this, I just wanted to say Avro actually reached out to Mascan multiple times, sent letters, had phone conversations with them. Not Mascan, with the national
Normal.
Normal on creating another South Coast Mascan because she knew that Mascan was really racist and sexist and bigoted and all this other stuff, and she called them out on it. And I just want to say Norm ignored her, so I think it's annoying. And I mean, I'm always ready for change whenever, but it's also funny. Is it real? Is it real when you guys wait until this time? Like, this is the time for revolution, and we're focusing on Black lives and all this stuff, and now you guys want to make noise, I just want to call that out because Ava sent about 3 or 4 letters, and I think she would be a great leader for our Norm.
Also, I'd like to just point out one interesting little tidbit, which is with all this coming out with Mascan, again, it just goes to show the divide within the community, because you hear everyone upset. Oh, he did the straight day parade. This is all this because of... No. This right now is about Black lives, about his nastiness towards everyone. But right now, the target was Black lives. And I know it turns off a lot of consumers in the cannabis industry to hear this, but no, we're here and we're gonna start holding people accountable. It isn't just Mascan. There's other businesses out there, and we're gonna start calling them out one by one. And it isn't enough for you to just say Black Lives Matter. If you're not making your business inclusive, doing the right thing, then guess what? You're going to be held to the fire. That's all of us, myself included.
That's the global economy that we live in, though, and that's where, like, on a global scale, America, I hope people are realizing in this global pandemic, the rest of the world does not need us. And I mean that, like, as a native son, I love America, like, but I also, like, have a global conscious mindset where I'm like, yo, our reflection is really bad, y'all. Like, they're gonna figure out how to move and not need us. And that puts us in a position that we're not used to. And again, I think white people, particularly white men, are in a position, like, their money's being affected and they don't know how to, like, respond. And I think this is the part where it's like, we keep hearing
everyone, white women too. I just want to say, because we always say white men, but white women are just as, and I have, like, personally had times with white women and fragility where a white man could come in and he has the only one that could check a white woman and say, no, you are wrong on this. But now we're in this time right now, just because of the revolution right now and this going on with Black Lives Matters, we're in a position where this feels great. We could call out anything and you guys understand and say, okay, they are trying to teach me something, which any other time, if it wasn't for this movement right now, if we called you guys out on some shit, it's us. You know what I mean? But because of this movement, now you guys understand. But like Jordan's saying, it's really because of capital. All of you guys are thinking capital. How do I get some money? You know what I mean? It's sick. I need workers. I need this. How do we get back to our regular life? There is no regular. We're creating our new norm right now. You know what I mean? So what's the new norm? How are you guys seeing the future now for our education, for our food system, for our business? Or are you just thinking about your cannabis business the same way you was thinking about it months ago?
And this is where data, like network science, like, I mean, where you see it, like, we can know individually a few people, businesses that, like, wow, they posted something about Black lives, but I know that person and they're really, like, not anti-racist. That show, like, well, I'll just tell you right now, as somebody who works in AI, we just tag that, right? And we label it, and then the computer learns, and then it gives you a score. And a lot of people are not gonna like their score when they look at their reflection and they're like, well, and I try to be very transparent because it's hard as a Black man in, like, AI to try to convince white people that, like, their bias exists and we can quantify it. because they don't want it to happen. But I'm like, oh, well, I don't want science and evolution to happen either, but I guess that's just happening. And you're welcome, because ultimately the score is, yeah, it's not like to be mean or whatever, but it's to say, hey, if you want to like work on a global scale, you need to be culturally agile. You could go viral at any point for ignorance. That's reputational risk. We have predictive behavioral models for that. Like, your score is a reflection of how people want to work with you. It's like a social
With that being Jordan, with that being said, I believe it was Mary Pryor that started a program, something like this, her and some other women, and they score cannabis companies just like what you're saying. And I think that's something that needs to go nationally.
Well,
I know that's something you've been working really hard on here in Massachusetts, and I can't wait to bring it out.
well, this is where I'm waiting for the CCC to create a space where I can be heard. And I blame Chairman Hoffman, and so the energy is coming because I'm coming for him, where I say, like, yo, you are a white man in a position of privilege. You keep saying you're sorry and all of, no, I want action. But Ominique's right. This is a revolutionary time. That board failed to be revolutionary and create a legacy that I think that he wants. Like, why are you still around if you don't want to do, like, be a good person?
But that's Hoffman. That's normal too. When you look at normal, because they've done the same thing, we need to hold them accountable. Even though I feel like I can't be a part of the organization, but they dropped the ball, and so now it's the head organization, the national organization, needs to step forward and make sure that this takes off in the right way. And Massachusetts has a new normal that it can be proud of, that everyone can feel welcome in, and we could all work together because we have a beautiful community.
Like, they have, but that's what it's like. They're gonna want to say it, but it's part of it is they just don't. I don't expect white people to know how to, like, teach themselves how to be anti-racist. But I do expect white people to understand how to create space, and that's where it's like, if you need to do the
Jordan. So if you don't expect themselves to teach us, you expect us to teach them?
No,
if you
don't expect my AI algorithm to teach them. I don't have the time to teach.
It's like the machine would do it.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, again, but I do it purposely. I want to create space. I've never defended my brother so much in my life, and I feel really good right now, because it's like, at the end of the day, though, I'm saying that out of love. Again, I still don't respect him, but I love that my core values are true, in the sense that, like, I can empathize with the oppressive mentality enough to know when the line is that, like, there is no return. And I can't have more empathy, but I want to make sure that I create space as, like, for people to feel like they can make a mistake, right? And that's what it's like, oh yeah, Black people they're gonna come for you, but I'm here for you to, like, teach you and educate you and enlighten you, meaning my AI. Like, I'm not here for every white person. Please don't ask me a message, like, how to not be anti-racist, like, there's books and shit, like. But at the end of the day, it's about understanding power. Like, if you're it's leader. Thank you for that correction, Ominique. I wanted to maybe reframe it as just like, if you're in a position of leadership, right? You have an opportunity, you're a privilege, responsibility to create space, period. And that's where it's like, if you're marginalized and oppressed, I don't expect you to show up and create the space. Now, if you can do that, good for you, but, like, that's not your job. If you are in a position of leadership, and part of creating space is stepping back. And that's where it's like, that is a really hard thing to do, but that's humble leadership that just men, we weren't socialized for. And I try to learn that from women, but at the same time, there aren't many women in leadership positions to step down from. So I wouldn't ask a woman to step down from, because she has the capacity to know that's what needs to be done. And it's hard, but I don't understand why, like, David, what's it, Robin, I don't know how to say his last name. I'm sorry. I can't.
Baby boy.
Well, not baby boy, but David. I don't even know if he was
David.
President or executive. Like, it seemed like he was facilitating, and as a facilitator, he was a poor facilitator. Just period. And that's why I'm like, but as a white man, I'm sure he would have got some 8s and some 9s from some people in the crowd, and that's the problem. People are okay because they care about his feelings and they don't want to make him feel bad. No, like, if you care about him, someone needs to show him he got like a 4 or a 2 or a 3, so he can do that introspective work to understand, well, what did I do to earn those scores? We really need to start opening up people.
That's why I feel like we can't. I don't know. We can't. Like, I understand. I mean, I do feel bad for people, and I say shit often. You know me, Jordan. I'm like, no, I thought about it. I'm sorry. I thought about it later. I think a lot, but at the same time, it's just like accountability. I'm sick of people getting, like, praised for shit that they shouldn't get praised for, or, like, like, and just not speaking out like enough. So, like, like we said, like with the baby boy Jeffrey, Catherine not speaking out, Catherine Ben not speaking out, baby boy Jeffrey saying like, oh, I hope no one has any hard feelings here. He was like literally speaking like, yeah, to Bill, like, all right, yeah, you're worried about hard feelings. What about all the injustice and how everyone felt, all the other Black people that were a part of that board, Judy, Shannon, how they felt and why they left. And you're talking about, like, you're really worried about this white man and how he feels rather than the whole community. And you really had to let us know that when you said, oh, I'm not speaking on my behalf. This isn't what I want to do, but I'm speaking because of the members are saying this. And I was like, damn, just do better. But I'm hoping by you hearing me say this right now, do better. I'm not mad at you. I ain't never mad. I call anyone out on this shit, and I'll be like, "Hey, when I see you tomorrow." But I'm gonna call you out on it.
I get it. I'm the same, but that's what's like. Ultimately, I agree with you, Ominique, and because I don't have that's your story. Like I don't know these people. I've never seen it, so I only know what I go going in. And just as a man, like that's the part where it's hard to describe like how toxic masculinity works in the sense of like if men who have emotional intelligence get picked on by like the toxic one. And that makes them not want to, like they become introverted or they don't want to speak up. So you see it in a classroom, like in 4th grade, when like, oh, the popular kid told the smart kid to shut up in that like way. And it's about using your privilege to create that space so that they don't have to use those excuses. Because I can only imagine what my brother feels like now. I never really thought about it until like years of therapy. I was like, oh, it must have been hard when my brother realized I was gay and I had crushes on his friends and no one talked about it. I always thought it was a race thing, but maybe it was, oh yeah, I definitely had some crushes on his friends. Maybe that's why he didn't want to hang out with me. And it's like understanding just that there's another, like a different perspective. But if it's like, if that wasn't it, and it was because like, oh, well, I just don't like he's Black and I didn't want to say it. Well, then yeah, well, thank you for feeling comfortable enough to share your ignorance. Like, and that's what's hard to reframe it that way. But like, when people show you who they are, they're kind of like in a way being vulnerable. And that's hard to like not get mad at that. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, okay, well, go find somebody who can like, has the patience for you, because I don't.
I got you, yeah.
And that's what it's like, and it's not your fault, I mean, because I feel you, where it's like, I hold people accountable, and then they want to bring back that energy because they didn't do the work to understand what I was saying.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the future. I need this VR stuff now. Like, go be ignorant on your own time. Send me a bill, like Virtual Jordan will talk to you all day. You can practice and then send me a LinkedIn message. And then we can like talk about it. Because you like people need to get paid for this emotional labor. And that's what I'm excited about. Like, you know, and I want to hear that. Like I want to hear, you know what? We acknowledge masculine. We acknowledge that this space has been toxic. We are going to have a stipend, an emotional stipend for any person of color, right? Like, now you're using your capital in a way that I would not be mad at a Black person who took that job. I will not judge you. Go get your check so that you can, but then it's creating the space. You didn't just pay them to sit there and be a face. You're going to let that person check you and correct you. You're going to track that data. And then you're going to say, oh, I only cut off women 8 times instead of 10 today. Where's my gold star? And yeah, if we need to give white men gold stars for not cutting off women, I'm okay with doing that. Because like, we got to meet people somewhere. But I'm not okay doing that live on Zoom, on recording where everybody can see that. No, we need to go practice first. And that's what, I set you up. Like, they're like, okay, cool. Like, because they still think that they're going to be, no, if you don't have the skills, you don't get to be in front. Period. It's a skill thing. Bill did not have the skills. And they were trying real hard to create space for him and it's called that inclusive space, but they're being mean to Bill, in my opinion. People are mean to him. That's why he's a mean person. Because nobody took the time to explain to him.
Please. He's a bully. He's been a bully. A lot of people have stories.
At 4th grade, the bully, though, like, that's why I'm like, oh, I gave him extra hugs.
Yeah, you're just too sweet, honey. See, I'm not playing that bullshit. I'm not playing that. And I guess that's why a lot of people know, don't come at me with that bullshit. I'm not here to play these games. I don't want to see what you're going to do. I'm not one of those folks. I'm not coming to the table with the ignorance and, oh, forgive him because he doesn't. Man, listen, you're a grown-ass man. You know what you've been doing, period. That's where it ends. Now, if he says he wants to do the work to improve himself, then hey, maybe one day I'll be a Bill supporter. But now, you have to show me different. He was the biggest supporter of Samson. Come on, like birds of a feather flock together. I'm not down with that.
Yeah, we're not even members of MassCan. And when I just joined that meeting and hearing it, I was just like, first of all, they're bylaws, and hearing all the members talking about arguments about the bylaws, how do people not all see the bylaws? How are the bylaws not clear? One. And then to have a rule talking about you have to be a member for 50 days before you can vote. That's total bullshit.
And then
it's
to like
90 days,
strategically like throw that out there when you like, yo, yes, I thank you for bringing that out.
And it would be good data to look at how many people became members just because they thought they could vote and then were unable to vote, because a lot of people became members just for this thing.
That's a lawsuit. That sounds like false advertising.
Do they get their money back now that they've lost their status? The people that registered to join, will they be getting their refunds back if that's what they choose to put towards a new normal?
That would be the anti-racist work in action, though. I think that would be an example of like, we don't care about the Capitol. We wanted you. If we didn't give you what we want, good customer service. But that's what people are. Well, wait, we said no refunds. This is revolutionary times. That's what I was trying to say. The rules don't apply. So what are these bylaws? The man's racist. Like, I'm sorry. My moral compass as the person in charge. Actually, I'm gonna say as the white man in charge. I decided, nope. We cut his Samsung Zoom off. And like it was dramatic shit. I would have been there for that.
And Shannon Jones is watching in the audience, and hopefully she can join us, because she is saying, in her opinion, and she was a director for MassCan. She says that all of their bylaws were new and strategic, and that they were formulated to manipulate.
That's politics. Yeah, but that's my point. We're like, I get how it works. You could have made a new rule that says, you know what? We added a clause that says if you're racist, you're out. You're out, and now it's
they
like,
have that. So the interesting thing is they have that.
But they can write it. But that's what I'm saying. Whatever language they don't have the words to do it. That's why I'm like, I didn't expect them to. But at the same time, that doesn't mean they couldn't.
No, the issue actually is that they do have that in the bylaws. There is something that if you're acting in ways that are unbecoming to the organization, that they can get you.
My point is bylaws is a made up system that we all agreed to. That like. Really, it's just used Robert rules to design and order. But like, again, Ominique said it. We are in revolutionary times. People take revolutionary action. I am not. What black people are going to get mad at the white man who kicked out the racist white man and didn't follow the bylaws? Is that Samson going to sue this person? Are they going to go to court for that? Damn, I'm gonna come support you.
No, wait. I want to hear what Dube said. But what you said, Jordan, like you said, well, the problem is they're not, because at the end of the day, they're racist themselves without knowing. People are racist and don't know. And just because you're racist doesn't mean you're a horrible person. There's good people that are fucking racist. We got work to do. We all have work to do.
I guess
like my mom said, the board. Those were elected by the members. So therefore, there's members that have values that align with those people's values. And they weren't thinking about black people or equity or anything, or disabled people or LGBT people or anyone when they did this thing, They weren't looking at the board. So, Dube, they do have some policy about.
Well, I guess what I would say is that when you're going to enact a moral clause, that's always subjective, right? And so you have the choice whether or not you're going to like push to enact that or just decide you're not going to. And so even last night, as they were all naming the reasons why people shouldn't be on stuff, like I don't remember anyone saying like because they support a racist ideology and the cannabis industry was built off of the war on drugs. I mean, none of us should be racist at all. So like we have a zero tolerance policy around racism. They literally played back a video last night. They allowed Samson to play a video back that had him say in the video, "All lives matter." And the MassCan crowd from that recording erupted in cheers that all lives mattered. And after that, not one person on that board said, actually, like all lives, we now are at least educated enough to know that the phrase "all lives matter" is incendiary and is actually intended to distract from like the true purpose of what the intent of Black Lives Matter, like, and we even have people that are like insisting that like when I say Black Lives Matter, that I must be referring to a political organization as opposed to like an ideology, which to me is that like Black Lives Matter, and I'm willing to put the capital B on black, but like the rest of it for me is often lowercase. Like I just believe that Black Lives Matter, and nobody in that organization could actually say that last night. And like, to me, that's the softness and that's the pandering to the overall, like, oh, can we all just get back to normal with this? Can we all just go back to like peace, light, and love? You know what? Like, white people that say peace, light, and love and use that like it's a fucking like dirty handshake. And in the meantime, they're all like stabbing each other in the fucking back. The people that say peace, light, and love are usually the worst from a moral perspective, are like some of the worst people. But last night, that was just what struck me, is that when you're talking about bylaws, those bylaws were manipulated to like avoid the whole crux of it, which was that like, oh shit, we have this massive PR problem because we allowed for our institution to become like racially driven and really even motivated. And there's so much other stuff. There's so much other stuff that like I won't even bring up right now because like I'm the white guy in the room, so like I shouldn't necessarily be bashing MassCan and bringing up all kinds of stuff that like I know about too.
Why is it bashing? Why is it bashing to speak truth? Like that's where it's like, I think even in how we're talking about it, like
right?
Because everyone
like
wants, because all these and I'm
really
when I say this, I'm speaking like from like the generally white perspective, which is like they all just want this to go away. They all just like, can't we all just like go back to getting along? And it's like, no, because most of you are racist and like the rest of you are supporting it softly and you're like cool with it. And that's the part that is like just mind-boggling to me. Like, if you want to be a racist plumber, go be a racist plumber. If you want to be a racist in the cannabis industry, get the F out of here. Like, just like out of all industries, like get out if you're going to be racist. Go do something else where racism is a little bit more palatable. Because like this cannabis industry would not be available to us if not for the war on drugs. Like, white people literally went to war against black people over this industry, and we finally said, like, let's stop that and let's make cannabis legal and let's make it available to people. And it's filled with fucking racists. It's like unacceptable.
At the front door saying, "I'm sorry, I know you. I know your cousin. I know your brother. Like, you can't come in. You gonna make me look bad as a white man. You can't come in." Like that. Like, we don't need you to tell us that. I already, like, that's what it's like. I know you're speaking to the audience, but it's like, yo, at the end of the day, that's where it's like, yo, that's where where you're like, I get that they're your friends and things like that, and it's hard but it's, if you learn to say it from a place of love, I love and care about you enough to say, I don't want you to come into this space and embarrass yourself.
And Jordan, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but there does need to be a white man who is like the fucking angel of vengeance when it comes to this. Like, I don't need to be the love guy. There's a whole bunch of people that want to be soft and like cuddly with all of these people and like help build them to feel like they're like, oh, it's okay. Let somebody else build them back up.
I don't care if you racist out. Go be ignorant and bring it in your house. But it's when you come to these spaces and somebody invites you and is vouching for you. And we hold people accountable for their network. So if you know that white person, that's why I'm like, I have done a poor job to prepare my family for this globalized world. And like, I think, and that's where it's like, I operate in my privilege, knowing that at some point people are going to put two and two together. And now it's like, well, I have to put in that work. And I put in that work. Well, right now I'm doing it by talking about it. I'm strategically creating space for my brother to be imperfect. I'm letting people know that I will defend him and these things. And so we can do that. We can communicate it. But the action, the hard part comes when like my brother shows up to the room and feels entitled to come in with his AR, whatever gun, and his Make America. No, I'm sorry, Crave, you can't come in. Like, I care about you enough to know that like this will be bad. And that's what's like, people have to learn that by checking or correcting their family members, their loved ones, that if you're doing it from, I don't think enough people care about Bill. That's why he is the way he is. That's why I gave the Bill in 4th grade extra hugs, hoping that he doesn't grow up that way. But at the same time, it's not everybody's job. And that's what's like, it's no one's job technically, but it's got to be someone's job, because that privilege of feeling entitled. Samson felt, I knew him in college. I ran against him for student government, where it's like, his name was Ryan Fox. But ultimately, they like to control the narrative. There's a certain white man in politics who is used to like being able to say things, and then like, I was like, why is he in the baby's room? Why are there baby blankets in there? Oh, he's appealing people's empathy. He looks like he's really good at a master manipulator. And that's what's like, that video speaks to it. And that's what's like, people want to control the narrative, and then like get caught up in the nuances so that they can still feel like they're controlling it. But when you have something like a Zoom call where people can log in and just psychoanalyze you in real time, oh, that was fun. I had so much fun. Because at the end of the day, I wouldn't be able to say those things out loud in that meeting, but best believe my face was. So I know a couple of them are going to be awkward, but now I got my receipts and like it's translated for you. So you can go back and watch it. Wait, where's my check? I just gave you some free cultural agility psychoanalysis.
I need to say one other thing, then I have to get going because we have a lot of homework to get to. But this is pertaining to the same thing, but I'm trying to put this in a nice way. So the other problem that I'm seeing in our community, I'm a Black woman. Everyone knows that. But every time an issue happens with Black people, I have people in my inbox. I have people in my inbox warning me who to speak to and who not to speak to. Can you hear me now? Okay, who we should speak to and who we shouldn't. I never allow myself to be used by anyone. I hope people really understand this about me. I speak what I want to speak on issues I want to speak about, on things that affect my community, and that's when I feel. So your intention, even if your intention is to use me, it would never. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna need to mute her mic.
Oh. You got to mute you. Sorry. So I was just saying, people calling and giving heads ups and warnings about this person or that person. If you feel you need to be in my inbox and warn me, I expect you to take a public stance on what you're seeing. You know, I know we have this natural instinct in us. Most of us Black people know who good and bad white folks are. You feel the energy when we're around each other. So if you're one of these people that are reaching out to me to give me a heads up, there's really no need to do that. What I need for you to do is put that person on blast. The person you're warning me about, put them on blast. Put it out there. Because I'm not into the secret, I know something about someone and he's dangerous to the community, but you know, he has a popular stance, so I'm not going to say anything. If you got a problem with someone, call it out. If you come at me with anything, I'm going to let you know about it. I just wanted to make that clear that everyone should be speaking out, whether it's about race or anything else. Our character is all that we have, and at the end of the day, I am who I am. I'm having the same problem with CGA as Mascan. I loved CGA, but I feel compromised right now because I was on the board and Jeff is the president and he says some off-the-wall things. Do I think he's a blatant racist? No. But you say things that danger my community and I won't stand by. And so for that, I have to back away no matter how I felt about you. We could have been close. There's been a few people that I've been very close with in the cannabis industry that I've literally had to cut ties with, and I'll do it without any hesitation. We're talking about my life, my children's life, my parents' life, my brothers, all of our lives. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm not here to convince anyone of anything. Either you get it or you don't. That's it. But I got to get back to my work, guys, and Mike, I hope we get to have another conversation soon.
Yeah, I really appreciate both you and Ominique taking the time to join us today. I know how busy you guys are at the farm, and stuff. So thank you so much.
Wait, are you leaving too, Ominique? Aw.
Yeah, we got work to do.
I always have work to do. This is it. No, that's beautiful, though.
All right, talk to you later.
So you're not.
Bye, thanks, Eric.
You guys be safe.
Eric, wait, we didn't ask you. How did you feel? You're a black woman.
Whoa. Well,
don't you do that to me. You better fix that face and think real quick, honey.
I have a lot to say.
I'll stick around. What's up? I'll give you 5.
The way I felt about yesterday, I just feel like everybody on that, everybody a part of that was soft except for Brian. Brian was the only one that I felt I can relate to in that situation. Like if all I did was put myself in one of those chairs and I just listened as one of them, and I was like, you know, if I'm sitting in this chair, what would I say initially? And I thought to myself, the first thing I would say is, yo, we gotta get rid of this dude, and we gotta get rid of this dude. And I feel like the only person that came close to saying that was Brian. Everybody else, you know, they said, it's like they was like apologizing for being a part of it. I'm like, no. Everybody needs to be deleted, like everybody. And the only person I felt that said that was Brian. He didn't say a lot of stuff, which is you don't need to say a lot. What do you need to apologize for as being part of a supremacy? Like what can you possibly say? There's no apology for that. It's like it's either you're a part of it or you're not. There's no gray line, there's no if, ands, or buts. And that's the way I felt. And so that's all I did. I just put myself in their shoes and I was like, hey, the person we all need to get off the board.
Did you feel welcomed by Mascan?
Huh?
Have you ever gone to any of their parties other than the Freedom Rally? Being around them, did you feel like they were welcoming?
I've interacted with Mascan a lot. Believe I've had a lot of interactions with them outside of this, you know, just personally dealing with them when I had stuff going on and I wanted to try to help. This is before I knew anything, you know, about it. Like I said, I'm a learner. I'm a listener. I listen and observe. And so over time, you start to get different emotions about people within the cannabis industry. So when we first met Mascan, it was a very weird interaction, but you know, I went with it, and you know, now looking back, I deeply regretted it, and it ended up blowing up to something more personal, and then now it came to this. And it's like, yo, everybody that's a part of that needs to be gone because they are bullies. They definitely, Bill is definitely a bully, and he tried to do it with me. But the thing is, I fight bullies, so he just met his match that day. And when we had our interaction, he definitely felt everything I had to say, and it didn't go very well.
But
so
see, Eric, this is what I'm saying. It is important that all of us speak up. Because I didn't know you had a situation with him. This is something that we should be talking about on the regular. Like, if someone's making you feel some type of way or there's an issue, we all have got to address it. None of this, it was just between me and my boys or my girl. None of that. People need to be put out on Front Street. What did you go through? And to think that you were probably treated better because in most people's eyes, you're a celebrity. Come on.
And that's the reason why I listen.
That they're going to think of you better and accept you, be more willing to try and accept you.
Yeah.
For the rest of us, and you know, before you got, you know, your fame, I don't mean to say it like this, Eric, but you know what I mean? Before you went professional, before any of that, you were just, and you still are just a black man. People just don't realize this affects celebrities. It affects all of us.
Yeah.
So this is all I wanted to say. You have a platform. I expect to hear more from you, Eric.
No,
don't wait for us to ask you what you think. Give us what you think.
And I appreciate you, you know, calling me out to say something, because the thing about me is me being in the position that I'm in, I have to make sure that I have all my facts together. I can't go in there without every single detail, because when I say something, people are going to listen and people are going to take it to heart. So that's why I listen a lot. I let everybody else speak, and that's what I think being a leader is. And that's how I've always been taught. You know, football has turned me into a leader. It builds character, but it also brings it out. So one thing that I learned in football is when I was a rookie, you don't say nothing. You don't say nothing to anybody who's been in the NFL because you never been there. It don't matter if you went first round.
Well,
it don't
I'm
matter if
asking
you're
you
an
to speak
undrafted
up in
free
this
agent.
case. You're
Once you
not a
get to the
rookie.
NFL, you
Your voice
are
is
at the bottom of the
important and it
totem
matters.
pole. You have no experience. You don't understand nothing. Don't matter if the team paid you $1 million until that first game. You can't say nothing. And so that's kind of how I approach the cannabis industry. I came in. I understood
Nope, we're
that
in a
I
new
was a
industry,
celebrity
Eric.
and
New
that
industry.
I
Jump right in.
All right.
And don't wait
no
for an
privilege
invitation.
jumping in. I don't think Goldi likes what she's hearing.
Huh?
I don't think Goldi likes what she's hearing.
No, I'm just saying that was football. Listen here,
No.
your platform's bigger than football now, so I want you to scream from the top of your lungs. You don't need to wait for an
You can
invitation.
be imperfect. I think he's creating space for you to be imperfect. You can be imperfect. You don't got to get all the facts. You don't got to do the research. Speak your emotions and your truth. You got
And I
to.
will, and
Damn
that's the thing. I have to get there though. I have to get to that point to where I can say the words correctly. I'm not gonna just start speaking because you know there's people out there who correct you, Jordan. So that's where I listen first and I gather facts, and then I put my emotion into the facts, and then I say it. It's not. If I just come out and say something, I might say something that might offend somebody that they feel like I'm on a different side.
We're
So,
probably going to offend people, but I just say, yes, I love the fact that you listen a lot, but I also want to hear you speak up more, and I want you to be more of an active part of this. I've been around you personally, and I enjoy being around you, and I think that you have a great opportunity here, and you have a platform. And I saw you posted the other week that you're going to use your platform to speak out louder. And we're just inviting you to the table. Not that anyone needed an invitation, but I wanted you to know your seat's been here waiting for you. So speak up, brother. Speak up.
So Eric, on the side,
I
we can
appreciate
talk,
that.
but like, I talk a lot about how you model the behavior that creates space for me to feel comfortable to check black men, because oftentimes they come at this like homophobic, like, you know, thing, like energy, when it's really like, I care about you. I want to help you so that you feel, because I get it, where it's like, it's hard as a black man to share your feelings and then have someone correct you on your feelings. And I'm like, oh, let me teach you how to check. It's usually women, but I'm like, oh, let me teach you how to, like, how I check women when they come at me. I'm not wrong for feeling this way. And it's like, and that's why I'm like, I hear you on that. But I also want to echo Goldi's sentiments around, like, yo, you got a powerful voice, and I loved your comments last night. And like,
and that's the thing, like when it's time, I always have like I don't never rush anything. I'm like, yo, when the time is right and it's time to say something, I will, and I will say it to the best of my ability. I'm gonna put everything out there. And it's just like when I was at the protest, I was sitting there the entire time thinking, because I knew it was gonna erupt. I knew somebody was gonna do something, but I sat there and the whole time I'm thinking like, yo, what am I gonna say to somebody who tries to challenge my word when I try to stop them from protesting? Because I understand what people say when they're like, hey, you know, let it go, like, you know, do this, do that. And I'm like, yo, like, I need to have my opinion first, but I also need to be able to answer other people's opinions. I need to be able to have something to defend myself when they try to, you know, actively pursue me. And so when, you know, the riots and stuff happened, or when people started pushing and stuff, you know, somebody stepped to me and said something that triggered me. And like I said, I definitely get triggered easy. And so but I always want to make sure that what I'm saying is correct. Not correct, but also speaking from my heart too. You know, I don't want to offend people, and I'm gonna offend people with words I say. Sometimes I'm gonna offend people. Sometimes I'm gonna say it wrong. But that's why I try to refrain from saying something too soon. Yeah, no, I hear you. So,
Well, so I think we've got Shannon. We've got two new people actually that joined on, even though you can't see Rico Lamitte. But we also have Shannon Jones that has come on, and Shannon's actually worked. We really appreciate her coming on. She was. I know, Shannon. I know you're shy a bit on camera, but
I'm not shy. It's not a matter of being shy. I just am very protective of my speech. I don't like to just.
Well, so
I mean, it's COVID, so we're now, with this whole, Zoom thing. I'm just I just don't like putting myself out there like that because I don't have a filter. If I feel like I'm going to say something, you best to believe it's going to be said. But I don't feel like I have to, always interject my opinions. But on this matter, it's very, very valuable to hear my voice as a Black woman who was on the board. I work with these people, so I do know them. I did watch the live last night, and I wasn't surprised at all. Honestly, it was typical. Like if anybody's been to a mass cam meeting, it's quite interesting. There's a lot of I thought because Eric, I've seen you at some of the meetings and all the meetings that I've been to. There's an array of people who come with an array of different backgrounds and opinions, and we're all passionate. And the core of it is we're passionate about weed. That's why I went. I was like, hey, I'm trying to smoke, I just to give you guys a little bit background, I was laid off in 2016. I was working. And as I was looking for jobs, cannabis had just become legal. We had just voted it on the ballot. So I was kind of like, let me see what this has to hold. I'm very interested. And so I just Googled Massachusetts cannabis. That's the only thing I Googled, and MassCan immediately showed up. And there was actually an invitation on their website saying that they were having a meeting in Waltham, which for me, it was, Waltham was only like 20 minutes from where I lived. It was accessible for me. And I was curious. I just kind of wanted to see, hey, it really wasn't that at that time. MRCC was very, very brand new. There weren't any real organizations that were talking about cannabis. So it's almost kind of like if you're starting in the cannabis industry, most people start through MassCan. That's like the first stop. And then they kind of move over and do their own thing. So that's how I became involved. And then after the lobby day, now remember the CCC wasn't formed. We only had the Joint Committee on Marijuana, that committee. So it was a very right time in legalization. There was a lot of movement. There was a lot of conversation. There was a lot of advocacy. So that's I immediately was pulled in. MassCan was like, hey, they as soon as you get in, it's a volunteer organization. So it's like, hey, you want to volunteer? We would love to, kind of get you up to speed to things. So I just kind of went right in there. And like I said, I don't know if you guys saw the video with the young jerks. A big piece of MassCan is planning the Boston Freedom Rally. That is a big portion. At the time in 2000, when I started 2017 and 2018, it was 3 days. And technically kind of 4 because you kind of had to set up and stuff. So 3 days at a festival, that is for free. No, we're not charging anybody. This isn't like we're trying to gain money. We're just really trying to give people a safe place to exercise their civil disobedience. So I was down for the cause, like, yes, let's smoke. Let's do this. Weed is very prevalent at these meetings. So to me, it was like, oh my gosh, you got your weed man right there. That's just what it was. But being a Black woman, I am cognizant of being like the token. So let me just kind of bring you guys back. I'm not originally from Massachusetts. I moved to Massachusetts when I was 14 years old. I was in 9th grade. I came from DC, Maryland, PG County area, which is a very rich and Black community. I grew up with mostly Black people. So when my mother moved to Massachusetts, it was a total culture shock. I was kind of taken aback. So from my high school years, I really had to develop, and unlearn, the safe environment that I had growing up, being around Black people, that being my community, surrounded all around me, to now being placed into this whitewashed state. And you guys have to realize Massachusetts is not a big state at all, geographically. Massachusetts is very, very small. That's one thing. Secondly, with the size of it being so small, the numbers of the amount of Black people in the state is even more staggering. I mean, there's Black people, and when I'm people from where I grew up was like, there's Black people in Massachusetts. Yeah, there's definitely Black people in Massachusetts. But you almost can kind of like get a GPS and find out where they're at, and like, and you're like, you found them. You'll know where you find the Black people in Massachusetts. So when I got into MassCan, at first I was very like, just I wanted to observe, I wanted to learn, I wanted to find out, how these laws could be formulated, and that was in the beginning a big piece of MassCan, going to the state house, talking to the state representatives, trying to make a fair, equitable, inclusive Black industry. Because in the beginning, that was a lot of the topic. There was a lot of words that were being put out there, but there really wasn't. Now we see there's not a lot of action. We had high hopes. I had high hopes. I was ready at the door. I was like, yes, let's go get this money. Let's do the damn thing. But when I got into MassCan and I looked around, and I did mention in the Young Jerks video, I talked about two people, Judy and David. Judy is a Black woman. David was a Black man. So I felt like there were voices at the table. But I was very cautious, and I told MassCan this. I was very vocal. Eric, you've been to meetings. I'm not just sitting there. I'm speaking up. I'm saying something. MassCan has to be extremely careful in appearing as like the white savior that's going to come and save the day, and they're going to just like, yes, we're MassCan and we help you. And I was just like, hold on, wait, we need to tread lightly here, because that's a white privilege in itself to be able to say I am in charge of this cause, and they're going to listen to me. So you got to really tread lightly, and it has to be very intentional, extremely intentional. So last night when I saw the show, I mean, gosh, I just wanted somebody to say Black Lives Matter at least once. That's it. It's so simple. It's 3 words. 3, 1, 2, 3. Black Lives Matter.
Especially after they played a video where Samson said all lives matter and everyone in the audience cheered.
I have never heard you.
It's wild.
I haven't heard you say BLM before. I heard it 3 times. BLM. I'm like, wow.
What's so frustrating to know that these people, when we were testifying at the State House and we're talking about social justice, they know. It's not like it's an ignorance thing. They know what racism has done to Black families. They know the structure of racism in America. They are very well aware of it. It's not like they're a voting club and they're saying, we already know the vast history. So it was very disappointing. And I would say for even like Catherine, I have a soft spot for Catherine because you kind of have to know her to kind of understand her. You really do. She was, I just wanted somebody to speak up like, listen, this is unacceptable. They kind of like, they spoke around it, and I think they were trying to be diplomatic. And I don't know, a lot of the new board members, I didn't work with any of them. I only worked with, Catherine, of course. I worked with Bill. Sorry, that's my phone. I work with Bill Flynn, so I do have stories about that. I work with Samson. And I think Nia Lorna was on the board for a very small time. Actually, I guess I didn't work with all of them. Sorry, my phone is going off. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, I did use this time to kind of speak on it. I think it is time for us to control our own narrative. I did leave the board last year, even prior to the whole Straight Pride Parade. That wasn't a motivating factor for me. There was so much stuff going on in MassCan. Listen, that 1 year and a couple of months that I was involved, it was so time consuming. It was draining. I did not have their energy. And you can ask any of the board members, my voice was loud and proud. they can't sit here and deny. And I just could. It's exhausting. It's extremely exhausting. Moving forward as time went on, and I saw how the industry was developing, and I saw how the regulations were going, and all my high hopes, all of my, wants and needs for the cannabis community, it went away. It is. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but it's a lot more challenging, as we can see. It's really sad, and even from last night, it's very evident. Go ahead, Jordan.
He dropped off.
He was just saying he had to bounce.
Oh, maybe he was saying he was leaving. That's
Shannon. I love you, Shannon. I love you, and thank you for speaking up on that. I just wanted to say that real quickly.
Hi, Rico. Thank you.
Shannon, meet Rico. I don't know if you guys know each other, but Rico's out in LA. He's got a cannabis marketing company, but he's also part of he's a director for LA Normal.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And I did want to speak on that as well too. I know that Normal was on the call last night. And when I was involved with Mass Care Normal, it was almost like Normal was just kind of like an extra added. The only interactions that I had with the National Normal was updating their website to reflect the new, when I was on board, the officers. But we were like, Masking kind of had like their own little chapter and stuff, and Normal just kind of like a name just popped on the end. That was from my understanding.
Right, yeah, and I dug into all that shit, and I was speaking with their legal earlier, and the motherfucker showed up at my house this morning. I got a newborn baby and a wife here, and I got a text message from our deputy that was he was the person, and I'll say this on air right now. He was the person that I told. He's the person who should have said something to JM and to Eric on last Thursday, and he's like, I don't know what to do. I'm sorry. I failed you. I'm outside. I'm like, what? Yeah, I called the cops. Got my shit cocked back here. Like, nah. This shit is not a game. Like at all. Like I'll send you like all this shit too, Mike. But yeah, like Normal says that everything is built in individual affiliates, so they have no control over anything. And they don't have anything in their bylaws about racism, anything in their bylaws about hatred or anything like that. And so they try to tell me that their hands were tied. Without saying specific names or anything, because my lawyers told me not to. It took these motherfuckers 4 days to say anything at all. When Michael told me that there was this BLM, Black Lives Matter, say it. They were saying that BLM shit like all last night. It was really, really pissing me off. But when he told me about the counter protest going on Saturday, I immediately told our deputy director. He did not tell anybody. Saturday came along, and our executive director was threatened verbally by some people in Boston, saying that anybody who rocks with Normal is racist. You were one of the founders. You're racist. Blah 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 blah. And now he's like, "Oh, did you send that message up to National?" I was like, "You're the director, man. I was in the middle of my show, and I told you to contact them. Like, why do I have to deal with any of this stuff?" And this thing just snowballed. And last night, and I'm sorry you were ever part of that organization. That was terrible. Like that was just straight ignorance on display. And I had no words for it. And we had a chapter call. I don't know if you're not part of Normal anymore. So there's a national call this week. And I purposely wasn't on it because it took them like literally 4 days to respond to me. It took them me doing my own research. Like, I'm not going to do my own research. Shout out to Mike Crawford. Shout out to everybody on those screenshots that you sent me, Dube, because I reached out to all of them. They all got different stories. They had screenshots. They have recordings. They got all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, oh, this goes way wider and deeper than anybody could expect. And I told Normal's Legal the same exact thing. I was like, I'm not going any deeper. I don't have time to focus on this. I'm focused on building Black connections and brown connections in the cannabis industry so we can move forward economically. Like, this is a distraction, and you guys let this run amok over years. Like not just now. This has been years. And you were on Mike Crawford's. You were on the Young Jerks, right?
Yeah.
This I was like, I love you, and I love you for saying what you did. You're so inspirational for doing that. You're so brave for doing that. But we shouldn't have to. It shouldn't have to come down to bravery, like at all. Do the right damn thing. And what I was so pissed off at is I don't tether. Come on, dog. Okay, sorry, my dog is over here. I don't tether my name to anybody else's organizations. Like period. I like flying solo, and I believed in what Keith Strop and Bruce Margolin built at Normal. Unfortunately, Normal that's going on right now is not that organization anymore. And as soon as I found that out, like, these aren't activists. Activists act. Like you're just like you're using Black Lives Matter as a hashtag. That's my life. It's my skin. I live this every day. Like, so for you to complain about, like, oh, well, I'm dealing with this. I'm sorry I didn't get around to it soon. Like, I don't have that luxury. I say one thing. I call you a bad leader because you are a bad leader. And you know what leaders do? They look in the mirror and say, like, oh, I messed up. They point thumbs. They don't point fingers. This is the first thing that I do when I mess up. I call you out on bad leadership. And you like, oh, you're unstable, and now you're like, I don't know what to do. You're outside my house. Like, nah, man, that's how you really find out how Black Lives Matter. like for real. Like, this is the kind of stuff that we're going through, and I'm calling out an organization that I tethered my name to on purpose, because that has to happen. Like this is not a joke. This is not a game, and you're messing with people's lives. And if you want to call yourself like an advocate, you want to call yourself an ally, like do those things. Like, stop talking about shit. Like, this is not a game. Like this is not a marketing ploy or whatever. And if you're going to use those marketing dollars, give those dollars to us.
Hello.
Like period. Like, we have our own issues as a community we need to get right, and we don't need your input. Like, because the majority of our issues within our community are because of your input, because of your getting in the middle of us in the economy, getting in the middle of us when it comes to medicine, when it comes to agriculture. We've always been a self-sufficient people, and we've always cared about the environment. We've always cared about what we put in our bodies, but you give us a bunch of trash, whether it's verbally, mentally, emotionally, whatever, and you fuck us up. Excuse me. I swear on here. I don't even know if I'm allowed to swear on your podcast, Dube. But nah, man, I'm just like, I'm fed up, and I got calls, I got emails from national. Like I said, I won't say any names, but like, this after the fact. Like, you should know who your members are. If you are, and that's why I protect my personal brand so tightly. And so vehemently, because I care. And if you care as an organization claiming to be an advocate, claiming to be an activist organization, you should care who is carrying your name too, who is waving your flag. And they obviously did not care because of so many people have given me proof. Like, this is like, it's not even, this isn't Reddit, this isn't 4chan, like straight up like documents, videos, recordings, like all this stuff, that tells me, that paints a totally different picture than what they're trying to paint for everybody to see. And we can't have that, and we can't have our people tied to any of that stuff, because we don't have time. Period. And I hope, what I did last week. And thank you, Mr. Dube, because that was all on you. And I was able to bring this to the national stage. Like this, you guys have been going through this on the East Coast. We had no idea. And National knew about this. We had zero idea. We're out here like thinking this is a great organization. We're gonna get more Black people in this. We're gonna get more brown people in this. Awesome. And they've had like neo-Nazis and supremacy sympathizers running rampant. And then I find out through my Ebony event that I did last weekend for Juneteenth, like cats in New York, they're like nah, like normal straight up like white supremacists. And they're like joking about it and stuff. I'm like, really? And I thought they were, I thought it was tongue in cheek at the time. Like, no. I could not believe that at all. Like, do you guys like not have any other like large trade organizations like out in the Northeast? Is just normal?
From a cannabis standpoint, I don't know of any other like large multi-state nonprofit.
There are organizations that have formed in the last couple of years, but I don't think they have as much like legacy in the years that MassCan has. And one of the things that I wanted to say a big issue all around in this industry is we're very reactive and not proactive.
Right.
We're just kind of seeing all this shit just burn, and we're just like, oh, look, it's burning, instead of stopping the fire before it even gets ignited. And it's just kind of like, I mean, from everything happened so fast, like the year that I was involved, because there was a lot going on just in legalization as a whole and stuff. And that was our core focus. Like when Samson, and just because I know Samson, and we were voted on the same time as the board, he wasn't coming into MassCan and like, you know, with a swastika, or it wasn't anything obvious or evident like that.
He's a crypto fascist.
Right. And I had, from coming from the South to the North, it brought up this memory of mine. I was just kind of like thinking, just kind of, you know, racism is a very relevant topic right now, but it's always now that, you know, people are feeling comfortable to speak out about it. But I thought about two incidences and how it compares to this. So when I was younger, like in elementary school, growing up in Maryland, we had a white neighbor in the neighborhood, and they had this huge like playground set or whatever. So, you know, it's like, oh, cool, you know. And it was three girls. There were three sisters. I had classes with them. We, you know, were in school together. But it was very known that their father was a racist. Like he just did not like Black people. The kids knew it. They, you know, one of my friends said something, and she was apologetic and stuff like that. And the mother, despite her husband's views, she would still let us play in the backyard with the kids. So in a sense, I kind of think, okay, there was somewhat of an ally. This is her husband that she's married to. And despite his belief, she still wants to let her kids, she wanted the importance of them having Black friends. So despite what he thought, I was like, okay, at least the mother was strong enough to say, no, y'all gonna go outside in that playground. If anything happens, I got your back. I'll let y'all know. We would run and go to the house. That was in the South. When I was 14 and I moved up to Massachusetts, I had this white kid in one of my classes. I was like in an honors class or whatever. And he lived right down the street from me. And like we had a project, or I needed some work with homework or something. And so, you know, I'm in the house and, you know, I'm doing our work. And excuse me?
Sorry, it's Leo.
And so when his father walked in, I immediately felt like, hold on, something I'm just gonna go home or whatever. So the next day I saw the kid at school, and I'm like, yo, was everything cool? Like, I just kind of like, I thank you for helping me with the part, whatever we had going on. And he was like, yeah, well, you know, I'm sorry. My dad, he doesn't really like Black people. I don't want to say anything. And I'm just kind of like, that's how it is in the North, where they'll have these beliefs in those four walls. They know what they believe in, on the outside, you may not know their beliefs. They may not have a Confederate flag flying. They may not have symbolism to show what their beliefs are. But the core root of it is that there is a lot of racism in the North. And the thing is, they don't speak on it. Had my friend had just been like, hey, Shannon, like the girls that I played with, if they had been like, yo, when my dad, if you see my dad, just, there was no sense of security, or he cared about my life, knowing what his family felt.
Right.
So to kind of tie it around with Mass Can, I didn't know what this inside of these walls look like. From the outside, there's greenery, there's weed, there's, everyone's saying all these great things. They seem very welcoming. They're, everything's cool. We're passing the blunts and stuff. But the core value of it is you got people in here knowing they don't like me, and you're not going to say anything about it. I would prefer you to tell me straight up, yo, my daddy is racist as hell. He don't like your black ass. I'm just giving you a heads up.
Thank you for, sorry, I apologize for running out and coming back. I overbooked myself. And anyways, thank you for sharing, because it's interesting coming from the West Coast, like to Rico's point, like I grew up in Inland Pacific Northwest on a farm. So I went to Boston and I was like, this is the most black people I've ever seen. Oh my God, it's so diverse. And then the black people are like, what's wrong with you? Like, where are you from? And it to the point, like I was socialized around white people, learned like our history to the point of like, all it was African American civil rights, slavery, that was it. Like, so a lot of microaggressions, but I was socialized to kind of like accept it in the sense that no one, to your point, said, well, that's because this teacher is this or this person's that. And I developed this fear of the South where I was like, oh, I can't go to the South. They're going to lynch me. So why would I even like think about going to a school down there? Mm-hmm. And then I went to Boston, and then, my interaction was just totally different. And so this is where it's like a lot of black people call me white, but I'm like, well, it's growth mindset and cultural agility. I had to learn how to your degree, operate in this space, and then acknowledge that like, oh, I have a privilege growing up with white people who are like, I can read it, but now let me translate for you. So like what you said with that energy, oh, yep, you're right. That's that non-anti-racist behavior. And it's a superpower that I think a lot of black people have that society has not conditioned us to like really elevate. Like no one's saying trust your inner gut when the white person, but I'm like, yo, if I see a certain type of white man walk down the street, I'm gonna cross the street. And I mean that like kind of jokingly, but also like it's a real fear, because white people are real comfortable with like guns and like really showing, and they don't even know it.
I mean, yeah, like I think we all have like similar transplant stories. Like I'm from Virginia originally, and we just grew up on our own. Like black people, we mess with black people. That's it. Until I got to college. Went to college at Northwestern University in Chicago, and I thought Chicago was a racial utopia. Like it's crazy as that sounds from anybody from Chicago. Like that's how I felt. It's the first time I had white friends, first time I had gay friends, first time I had an Indian, like anything in between. And weed is the reason I was able to do that. Like you ever had that bag, we got into it. And then I moved to California, and I was like, yo, Chicago is racist as hell. But I mean, when all of this stuff recently started going down, like there's a lot of stuff out here as well. And on the last episode I was on, I was talking about like what went down in Charlottesville. Like a lot of those perpetrators that were doing that crazy stuff in Charlottesville that gathered for that Unite the Right rally were from California, because they can't openly say a lot of the stuff that they want to say and openly do a lot of stuff that they want to do here, because they'll get stomped out real quickly. And the one thing I will say about being out here is that I had maybe one or two times in Chicago, but I never had this in the South. White people out here actually do stick up for you. That you will have like some, I don't know how woke they really are, but you will have some like white folks that like out here, and they're like, no, you will not say that. And they're like, and that's awesome. And that was like the point of me like pointing out, like he still hasn't gotten back to me. The gentleman from my LinkedIn, like we gotta like call out the good people too, man. Like these people like that recognize like I might make mistakes. I don't really like know what's going on, but how can if I can help, like I would love to help. And we have to like continue to have a little bit of a learning curve too. And I know some people are against that, but you have a little bit of a learning curve because like we've all been living in our bubbles. Like all of us, and they've been living in their bubbles as woke as they want to say they were. And this is like certain people within my own chapter at Normal as well. They were the same way. Like, they go, oh, I'm woke. We're doing this. We're doing that. I was like, what's the call to action though? What's the point of this? Are we just like putting people on display? Like they wanted to have like social equity applicants like on our normal live broadcast or whatever. And like, what's the point? Are you helping them? Are you getting them funding? Are you getting them opportunities? Or are you just like putting them on display? It's a circus show. Like,
well, I mean, there's still maybe an opportunity though to like for others to maybe learn from whatever experiences that they're sharing or whatever, right?
But it needs to be explicit and purposeful. Like,
yeah, you have to be like have something like after that, like yeah, like
hey, well now that sounded good. That's why we did it. No, you had a lesson plan where you methodically said this social equity applicant is from a marginalized community, does not have access to a platform, and then you have measurable goals. So we're going to, and then you help them translate. That's what it's like. Like Rico, thank you for saying it, because it's like people virtue signal, and then after the fact they try to control the narrative. When I'm like, just show me the receipts. Where was your notes when you created like this? Oh, this is how you run. No. That's just what we do for Black people, is what they say when they show me that they have a plan for white people and they have goals, and they're not stretch goals or reach goals or whatever this shit is that people try to justify not reaching goals. Like if you have a diversity something and you didn't achieve it, I'm gonna need you to acknowledge that you were bad and it was a failure. If you can't do that, then I'm reading you're bad, you're a failure, and now you're like somebody who tries to control the narrative so that you don't have to acknowledge that you're bad and a failure.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to be your Black friend. You know, the Black friend. Like, I can't be racist. I have a Black friend. You know, I know Rico. I hang out with Rico. Like no. Like, I'm not trying to be your Black friend. I want to be an ally with you. Right. I want to be an ally. I want you to be able to reach out to me. And if you have questions about stuff, I can be that safe space. Right. Is white folk, good intending white folks. And you're like, is this an issue? Like, I'll tell you like straight up. I think it's the best thing that you can do. And speaking at UCLA, and this kid, he's a graduating senior. It's awesome. It's the most dopest thing ever. Like, I'm speaking about being Black in cannabis last year to graduating seniors in the cannabis club at UCLA. And this white dude in the crowd is like I consider myself an ally. I want to get into the cannabis game. And how can I make sure that I don't repeat the mistakes, perpetuating Black people a certain way and doing all this? And I said, just like that, brother, just asking questions. It's the best thing you could do. Like, just don't assume. And every single one of us, Black folks, like, we come in all different size, shape, colors, and we got different experiences. We have different thresholds of pain too. Like, I'm not one of those people that can ever like tolerate, a white person dropping an N-bomb, saying the N-word. I know there's other people that's them, right? And I come from the South, and where I'm from, if I hear somebody saying that word and they're white, either one or two things happening: I'm about to get my ass whooped, or you about to get your ass whooped. Right? Yes, and that's how it is. Like, but if you think something is controversial and you're about to say this and it might trigger somebody who's Black around you, just ask them. That's the most respectful thing you could do, is just ask. Like, is this disrespectful? It's not too PC. It's not soft of you. It's respectful, right? Like, respect this. And if you understand what's going on right now, you get just a little bit of our pain. Like all the stuff that you're seeing right now on TV, out on social media. That's just it's maybe a drop in the bucket.
Can I add to? It's like,
please
be mindful of your tone and how you ask the question, and then your energy in creating space and how you respond. Because it's like I can tell when there's like a frustration, and it's like, but like, and it's like a leading question, and I'm like, oh, my brain already psychoanalyzed like what you didn't. And that was your job to do that. Like, you needed to know that, like, if you get I literally go to therapy for these things. Like, I have to go to therapy to learn how to emotionally regulate. And maybe if white people who are well-intended and want to do that work viewed it as like I don't want to say mental illness, but like something mentally that you can work on, like in a space, like go pay a therapist to like say, hey, like talk about Black Lives Matter, and then like have the therapist tell you, well, you seemed angry or frustrated, and then like do that with somebody, like, because it's not like, that's what's like, Rico, I think it's great that you can create that space, but I think we also enable people to think that like, even though you are saying that not every Black person is like that, they only remember the good ones who create space for them. And then they get frustrated when other people don't.
And that's why I tell them straight up, I'm like, I'm not like everybody. You know, I was a military kid. I grew up 5 years in Virginia, then 5 years in Germany, right? And so it's culture shock for me to come back to racist ass Fluvanna County, Virginia, right? I go from living on a military base, so it's like a small slice of America, in Germany, and we didn't have a bunch of that. Like, there was obviously racial undertones like within the ranks and everything and like that, but like me being a kid out there, like I had straight history, like real history taught to me at that school, right? Real mathematics, like all that stuff. And I didn't realize until I got older, like I moved out to California, I didn't know who the hell Cesar Chavez was. I'd never heard that name before. Frida Kahlo, like I didn't know that. I learned Frida Kahlo when I was in college, but I was in Virginia. Like history is taught regionally, and it was taught through a totally different lens. When I was 10 years old and I moved back to Virginia, and it's like more of this, like they didn't really talk about slaves at all. The Civil War, and they would joke about it as the War of Northern Aggression, and I didn't really think about it till I got older. I was like, hold up. And then my senior year of college, we have his vote. It lost by, I think it was like 3 votes to turn Martin Luther King Day to King Lee Jackson Day.
What?
Yeah, it's the year 2000.
Like Robert E. Lee?
Yes.
Wow.
King Lee Jackson Day. And then they actually did change it 2 years later on a ballot initiative, and there was no vote on it. I mean, there's no, like, it didn't go to the House. Like this is crazy. And people would tell me, like my friends from like Georgia, Texas, whatever, Virginia ain't the South, like all the Confederate battles were fought there, and that's where the capital was. You shouldn't tell me like VA in the South. Like this is crazy. And but we can't. Yeah, you guys like dealing with that stuff out in Massachusetts, man. I could not imagine. And I commend you so much, Shannon, for what you guys dealt with out there. That was crazy. That was reality TV last night.
What did you say?
That was reality TV last night. I think
Listen.
They could have got a deal. They might have got a deal from that, man. Like between Bill and baby boy.
Well, so Rico, so Robert is actually in the comments right now. He's watching right now. So here's what I would say is that, and I've actually expressed this to MassCan folks like a long time ago, that like, even though I thought that they were acting as a sort of like a really bad company, that I could see that there were individual people there that like had goodness in their hearts. And that's like various differing levels, right? And like nobody's perfect, right? But I think that Robert is here watching because he like, and I think there's a lot of people that want to learn, right? And
so I was giving him a shout out. I was like, baby boy.
Yeah.
Baby boy.
So here's what I would say though, is that like, I think that there are people that are on that board that like, even if that was sort of like a crap show in a certain way, and like, I do feel like I feel like that there were people that were trying to do good, but there wasn't maybe necessarily a whole lot like accomplished by the end of the day.
So can I just say from experience?
Yeah,
please.
Well, my experience with MassCan is I think there were 12 or 13 directors while I were there. So there were a lot more directors with a lot of voices and stuff. And there's a lot of skill set. There are people who, the beauty about the cannabis industry is any industry or any kind of field that you want to get into, you can apply it to cannabis. So there's a lot of different angles that you're coming at. The biggest issue for me was we're just winging it. There's no intention. There's no true, like, hey, this is like, if I don't know if they had a meeting before the Zoom call last night, but if it's simple, like, hey guys, when we get on this meeting, first thing we're going to say is Black Lives Matter, just so we can make it clear as day.
Right.
Same way
Right.
we go up in here, and I think with the whole culture of it being on camera too, you know, man, if they had some of those recordings and the meetings that I was in, then y'all would have heard my black ass. Please believe that.
Right.
But
Yes, you got to strategize and you got to put stuff. You have to put stuff on paper. And I'm sorry, I did not mean to, like I say, like anything about Baby Boy. I was like, yeah, like I like Baby Boy. Like me and my wife were like rooting for him because he was the only one like seemed like he was actually processing that stuff. Like everybody else, like they made up their mind before they got in there. They didn't even know the meaning of that word on it, but you're voting on it.
Well, it became a scandal. They were like, oh, well, didn't you say that we were going to have a special session? And then it became, well, no, yes. I didn't say that. And then they said, well, let's go to the receipt. Right. And I was like, wow.
When they pulled up the receipts, man.
Yes. Yo, I'm about that life, yo. I remember I read this somewhere. And that's accountability, though.
I was hoping that when she did that like little screen share, I was like, I hope I see something that we ain't supposed to see. Oh man, but yeah, that was out of control though.
People have to be afraid that their record will be put on Zoom for 225 people to comment on in real time.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
Yeah, that's the world we're in now. Like, if you're not for it, you're not like. Watch Black Mirror, the last episode, like. You might not get it because it's really like higher order cognitive thinking, but that's you at the end in the Black Museum. Like no one's gonna want to come be around you, see your racist like stuff, and have you try to frame it now. Like, and maybe one of your enemies will come kill you at the end. I don't know.
Right, and I just think like where we are right now, like it just exposes like so much, and if Normal, if a well-intending organization like Normal was infiltrated by those types of people like years ago.
Rico. Started.
It started?
It was started by 4 libertarians, which basically share the same views, same like general political ideology that has resulted in the problem with MassCan. And I'm not saying all libertarian. I'm not knowledgeable enough around politics to make a accurate statement around this, but what I will say is that there's a libertarian connection there between Samson and the folks that created Normal to begin with on a national level.
Well, there's political ideology, your core values, and then how you implement them. Like I love Marxism in theory, but like white people is not Marxism. And
Jordan, me and you are on the same track with that, and that's what I was saying. Like, a system is a system. A system isn't evil until you put people into it with their own intentions, and you can interpret that any way you want it. And that's why the Republican Party, like as I was saying like last time, with the Republican Party, like traditionally with Black folks' values, with our core values and everything, we should all be Republicans. With where we come from in our communities, we should be Republicans. But because of institutional racism and the people that like bastardized these systems, they made it into whatever they wanted to make it into, and that's where we are right now. And that's why I don't adhere to any of these political parties. I have certain conservative views. I have a lot more liberal views, and I feel like none of these parties like paint me to be who I am. I'm an independent thinker, and I question everything, and that's what drove me down the rabbit hole this past weekend and brought me here with you guys, like for real. And that's another great thing about Black folks, and is we are natural conspiracy theorists. We've been talking about this shit since we question absolutely everything because the government has been after us forever. And go ahead, please.
I got diagnosed with like paranoia, so I have PTSD, but then clinical anxiety and paranoia. But my neuropsychologist was like, well, you don't really have paranoia. You're just really good at predicting people's behaviors because you're used to trauma. And that's what it's like. What Jay-Z said, if you're crazy, then if everyone's crazy, then you're the one that's insane. And like, Black people are issued with mental health. Like, we don't get the opportunity to like communicate that that paranoia is really a reflection of white people. It's not on it's a fight or flight. Like,
right. And in ways that's good, because our antenna is always up. But the thing I'm most disappointed about, and this is since me being on the legal side of the cannabis industry, right? When I was on the trap side, like I didn't have these problems. My antenna was always up. So I've been on the legal side 3 different times. 3 different times, I kind of got a little comfortable, and I get fucked over. Like 3 separate times. Like every time so the way stuff is right now, man, and that's why I'm merging a lot of mainstream people into this, because they know about accountability. I just feel like a lot of folks in the cannabis industry, a lot of these organizations, they just don't have the right people running them, like straight up. And we need to match this gangster mentality of the hustle side of that. That's what we need to extract, the hustle side out of that, and put this business mindedness in it, so we can actually build stuff that is that has integrity behind it. Because there's a lot of well-intending folks, but you got gangsters running your shit, and I say gangsters without a color, like white, black, brown, don't matter. Like if you have unscrupulous people like running your shit, like get them the hell out of your organization. Like this is an agricultural revolution that we're on the tip of right now, and you're all going to be gone, and there's going to be a lot of collateral damage. And anybody, and this is what I told everybody on our normal call yesterday, because this wasn't the national, this was our chapter one, and we had to air some shit out. I told them straight up, I was like, until they do a thorough investigation and as transparent as possible, like I wouldn't recommend anybody ties their name to that organization, because it just because they took certain days from saying anything, and even through the show, they were on the message board in the middle of the vote last night. They had still not put out anything on their Twitter. They had still not put out anything. It was, I think, an hour after that was over that they put something on their Facebook. And, like, it took you guys this long, and you guys knew this, right? And I can't get a straight answer on an email, so I can tell my people. I tell them, like, yo, I'm a real activist, and I'm doing activist shit over here. And people are mad because they see that I'm tied to your organization. What is your stance on this? What is your response? And they couldn't give me that.
Well, no, he said it on camera. I think he said, well, they took us off their website and didn't give us money or something. Like, that's what it's like, yo, people, like, I wish somebody cared enough about you to tell you that you shouldn't be on camera talking to people like that and want to work with them. Because like he reached out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm like, oh man, like.
But Shannon, there's an opportunity now, right? And so this is where I'm torn, like on the opportunity with normal abroad, because I believe in their tenets, right? I believe in their tenets, and Bruce Margolin, he's like one of my heroes, right? Out here, he's done a lot of stuff with the Black community, getting folks like out of marijuana and cannabis convictions and all of that. And I was friends with him. He was coming to my events before I even joined Normal. I still believe in the pillars that they have. Would you be open to going back in there and with more people of color and taking over that shit? And that's where I'm torn, because I have a bunch of people take me elsewhere.
I don't know if I could do it personally. I
like if you could replace like everybody within that structure with your people, would you be open to that?
I do think that, because there were some comments, I do think that there is some value with maintaining the MassCan relationship that they have with the city of Boston, because like I said, when I was there for 3 days, they had the Boston Freedom Rally, which is hugely inclusive. I mean, and I want to make a point, for the 3 days that the Freedom Rally took place, that I was involved, there was no incidents. There was no fighting. There was no, that's something that, wow, that is, we can all come together on this great land, smoke a lot of weed, and be one. That's beautiful. I would love to recreate that. I would love for a space for us to recognize our civil disobedience. I really do, but it's easier said than done. I think that that's what's being clear. We can stay and we can and dream and have these visions. But when it comes to the actuality of it, and when it comes to the work and the commitment that is involved behind it, you need an army, you need a strong, and I think that's, you have to really be careful with who you have around you, you know. Mass Camp was a big, you know, people come and go, you know, the whole state and stuff like that. I don't know if it could really be created. And even within, I think it's very important that a Black organization that's run by us, that's started by us, created by us, it is extremely important. I hope to see it come into fruition. I know that there are, I mentioned it on the video that I did with Young Verse. There are tables that are being built. There are people who are trying to figure it out. It's not going to happen in a day. It's not going to. It's going to take a lifetime commitment. Literally, it has to be. You have to have serious intentions. You have to know what your mission statement is. You have to know where you stand on it, and when there are disagreements and where there are kind of like, hey, where we go, you have to really kind of come together. So I don't know. I personally, I think I'm not in Massachusetts anymore. Like I said, I've taken my efforts elsewhere. I'm actually in Kentucky right now. So I hope I would love to see it, but I don't know. I don't know if it can. It would take a lot. It would take a lot of effort.
I think the problem is like it's tough to have volunteer positions. Like just because you're a nonprofit doesn't have to make it a volunteer job. Like they need to get better funding so they can actually pay people.
There were a lot of directors who did a lot of work and a lot of effort, and none. I don't know of anybody who got paid at Mass Camp. I didn't see any checks going around, any money while I was there. So that's a very important part that you bring up is it going to be volunteer or is it going to be profit based? You know.
Well, with that though, is like equity too, like the Cannabis Control Commission around where you put your dollars. Like if everybody else is volunteering because they have the capacity to, and you want to create space to pay somebody, I don't know, just call it generational poverty and like intersectional Black people and Black people who are not denied the opportunity to build the wealth in order to volunteer or feel like they can volunteer or to feel like they can volunteer and that it's not like you can frame it however you want and pay people and call it equity because that's what it is.
Hello.
And it's like, those are all those missed opportunities around like, the problem isn't the solution, but that doesn't mean you can't come up with an idea that is like, that's when Black people's ears like, I'm like, what? Wait a minute. You gonna pay me to show up to this meeting and check you on your ignorance? Not sign me up because I won't do that. But there's somebody out there who will. And that's where it's like, and yes, you will get blowback. You have to like, white people have to get ready to like play the game of like, okay, what are my white friends gonna say? And how can I think about controlling the narrative so that they feel bad for saying that, or like whatever it is that you do to speak, to do the right thing and feel like you can, like you stand your ground. Because that fear of white people shaming you or holding you account, like that shouldn't be more than like the feeling of doing the right thing. And to Rico's point, if that means Black people, we can do a better job. And I mean, it's not our job, but like elevate, highlight when people like Peter Norbit, like, you know, white people who are doing it, who get it, and just say, acknowledge it. But to the Cannabis Control Commission, we don't need to call them leadership awards and, you know, like give people like trophies for doing the right thing right now. Mm-hmm. And that's my point. It's like, we don't celebrate white mediocrity right now when the industry isn't equitable. I want to celebrate the white people who were good all along in the 10, 20, 30 years. And then we're like, yo, for 20, 30 years, you earned this leadership and equity award. Here you go. Like, otherwise, it's thank you for participating and saying Black Lives Matter.
Right.
That's true. That's good.
I tell people just don't even say it. Don't say it if you don't mean it. If there's nothing behind that, like just don't say anything. Like if you want to cash in on it, whatever, give me some equity of your company. How about that? Give me some ownership in your company, and allow me to be your poster child for those issues, and I'll actually have convictions for it, and I'll be able to fund my projects. I'll be able to fund my people. So if you want to capitalize off of that, give me a piece of your company. That's my trade-off. Like I have no problem with capitalism at all. But if you're going to use me,
you don't?
No.
Oh.
No, like I'll tell you, like I told you, I'm a capitalist.
But I'll play the game.
Yeah, I'm a capitalist, but I believe in conscious capitalism, if that's even a thing. But there's balances. I believe in checks and balances, and I always everything I do, I invite people, conservative, liberal, whatever, on both sides of the aisle there, like, because I have a different view on America and all things, because I didn't grow up totally in America. I grew up in this kind of weird place in an army base in Germany, and then I went to racist Virginia. Then I went to Chicago, where it's cold as fuck and people smoke weed together. They don't really socialize outside of that, like across races. And I went out to California, where everybody pretends to be like friends, and they're privately racist. So I have a very, very different view on things like that. And yeah, I believe in capitalism. Because this is a capitalist world, period. Like, are we going to tear down?
But can we change that world? That's what I'm hoping to see. I'm tired of the norm.
Now in our lifetime, you gonna go.
I think we're used to capitalism, and we see it as our only way out.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish that there were other options available. I don't have the total answer, so I don't want to speak on it completely. But I'm a little cautious when.
And is something that I've evolved towards as I've gotten older, and it's gonna take a couple of lifetimes to get that shit down. Like, it's gonna take a couple of lifetimes to get out of that, because it's global. It's not just in our country. This is global, and even in the nations that are socialist by name, they have lots of capitalism sprinkled upon them too.
Hey,
the most success. Go ahead.
Hey, so guys, so just a little interesting tidbit. So earlier in the show, and I think Jordan was here for it, but Rico and Shannon, Shannon, you may have been watching when Ominique was giving her opinion on Robert Baby Boy Jeffries, and basically how he claims to be biracial, but yet on the forms that he submitted for MassCan, he claimed he was white. And so basically he sort of, I think what she was saying was that he was sort of picking and choosing when he was black and when he wasn't black, and when it was convenient for him and when it wasn't. And I sort of wanted this show to like be like all black guests, so that there was minimal white, sort of like white splaining going on. And I know I've been interjecting here and there, but so he's
noise.
He's online right now saying that I'm spreading hatred by basically, I guess, facilitating a show where black people are calling him out for his duplicity.
Who said that? Robert said that?
Yeah, he's got
my wife sent me that, and I just messaged him. I was like, nah, man, we weren't doing that. We're actually shouting you out for being the only one in the process.
You corrected your, like, I think the reaction to I took it as like an empowerment, like, yeah, like baby boy or whatever. And then it was like, whoa, like, let me speak to that energy to clarify. So,
yeah.
Sorry.
I was saying, like, it's like a reality show, because you had all these personalities in there. You had the one woman who was like nodding off. She was like passing out half the time. And then you had like a white supremacist G.I. Joe over here in the top right. And then you got like old racist uncle down here, and you got like the creepy guy who like ran he ran a comic book shop, but you got the dirty magazines in the back, like, down here. Like, you had all these different characters. And I was like, Baby Boy he was like the wild card. You had no idea. You had no idea what it was gonna be, because if you looked on MassCan, like, it's truth be told, because if you look on MassCan's website, he does look like he's from like one of Richard Spencer's like homeboys. But then I saw him on last night. I was like, that dude's kind of cool. Like, he's actually all right. And then I actually looked. He actually friend requested me. I think he's like my friend on like Instagram or something like that, like back in the day. And I did see that he had a little mixed little baby girl and all that stuff. And that's why I try not to judge books by cover. Books by their cover at all. That's why, like, people think certain things of me, and man, I'm very, very layered. I'm very complex.
Point. He should have held accountable in the sense of like he's like my older brother, where he should like my older brother tries to check me and be like, well, I'm Black Jordan. I'm like, I know, but the way you're saying it is as if like you didn't believe it and you reminded me. And that's the point, is like you didn't bring that energy when it wasn't convenient for you for however many years of your life. But to his point, if this is his new energy, and this is like I just
I don't want to say it's no, and that's why I wanted to be here, because I have, I know these people. I know Robert Baby Boy Jeffrey. This isn't the first. It's not like he's just discovered his Blackness or his, Puerto Rican side. When I met him, the first time I met him, he was just like, oh, hey, we started smoking and stuff. He has biracial daughter, I believe. And he told me, Jeffrey, I know I look white, but in reality, my daughter, she's half Puerto Rican. She doesn't look she's not nearly as dark as me. And I definitely try to instill her, we are still Black and we are still proud. So if Robert Baby Boy Jeffrey wants to be proud in his Blackness and his Puerto Ricanness and his whatever blood he got running into him, yes, your Black life matters, Robert. You know what I'm saying? So don't. I did see the video early on, and people you're going to get judged. People are going to perceive how they feel. But to clear it up, I hope he knows that, I didn't take it as racism. I just think people just they weren't aware. They just didn't know his story or who he is.
Right.
Well, and again, I would just suggest everyone can go back and listen, like later on, they can go back and listen to Ominique, because she had a lot of strong opinions on that. It doesn't need to be like sound as if it's me that's reiterating exactly what she said, but she, and that was the thing, is like what I really, one of the things, other than like empowering voices and giving people a chance to like talk about their truths and like what they feel that needs to be said. I also wanted this to end up being something that like, look, everyone, especially Black people, get exhausted by all of this, like by having to try to explain to white people over and over again, like what the issues are and what the problems are and how they're acting isn't right. So the nice thing about this show today is that there's something that people could go back and watch, right? And so that's why I wanted a bunch of Black folk to be able to come on and have the opportunity to be like, this is how we think about what is going on, what happened last night, right? So that it's not, because I get it, I need to be one of those people that's like, yo, other white people, you need to like act right. But at the same time, when it's just that white voice, at a certain point, they're like, oh, your opinion is kind of invalid, Mike, because you're white too, and here you are like white-splaining to us about like racism and how we're racist, right? And so after a while, when I'm the only one, like that's why it was important to have some Black voices that are like, yo, here's some opinions on this. And so like in the meantime though, like he's basically saying that me facilitating this conversation is me spreading hatred. No, and it's really that like somebody else was like a Black person came on and was like, yo, he did not represent Black people. He was representing the membership. He kept insisting, I am doing what the membership is telling me to do. Not, hey, I'm a Black person who's on this board and here's how I feel about this stuff. Right. And here is my, as a Black person or as a mixed race person, like here's my experience with this, with racism here. He didn't do that. Instead, he just took the stance of like, I'm here to represent the members, which none of the members are Black. There's almost no Black members.
Just, and I don't want to come up, I'm defending him, but his role is the member liaison. That's his role in MassCan. So it was a MassCan meeting. It wasn't a Black Lives Matter meeting. It was a MassCan meeting. And I was even texting him through the meeting. I'm like, yo, we were all communicating. So I think that he was just trying to be a voice for the people who weren't there. With the meeting being on Zoom, had it been before COVID, you would have heard the members speaking with, amongst the board of directors. It would have been a whole forum for everyone to speak. So I just think that he was just trying to relay, hey, I'm getting some feedback from the members. Let me just kind of interject. He wasn't going to go first as,
he could do that.
Honestly, I would have felt more suspect if he wanted all of a sudden be like, oh, Black this, blah, blah, blah. No, just kind of. Well, I do wish he had said Black Lives Matter. I really do. I wanted somebody to say it throughout the call.
We were rooting for that. We were waiting for that.
And not even just like in his friend just say Black Lives Matter. But in the member, like, I don't, he was just speaking, he was doing his job as a member liaison to make sure that the members' voices were heard in the board of directors meeting.
And I guess, if he wants to use Robert rules of formality to just slow roll soft support on racism, I guess he can still do that. But that's what it struck me as, was like when he had opportunity, he had the opportunity to do both. They're not mutually exclusive. He could have said, I'm here representing the membership, and also I am here as somebody who, he's fine to sort of pick and choose when he wants to do that.
Yeah, that's not really necessary.
But that's a thin line, Mike, where it's like, you're, from my understanding, 100% white. He's white passing. And so now you have this like experience where, like, in college, one person, I'm gonna say her name, Sarah Brown. She's like, you walk down the street, she's white woman, but like she's very proud of her Black heritage and Black. So she would come tell me the things that white people in student government would say around her, around Black people, and I'm like, oh my God, thank you for sharing. And then I'm like, how are you? Like, you're Black. Like, you sitting in there absorbing all of this negative energy. Like, that's like a spy in the sense of I needed to know that information. But as Black people, we need to create space so that white passing people, my brother, can be imperfect in understanding that, like, well, maybe he's used his position to speak about Blackness because he wasn't allowed to, like, wasn't raised or socialized to do that. And that's where it's like, only he can speak to his true intentions.
Yes.
I think it's about how we create space for people to be imperfect and acknowledging that white passing people aren't white, even if I say it. Like, I'll call my brother white, I'll say he's white. He was socialized to be white, but he's white passing and he will correct me. I got to work on it. But at the end of the day, I will not let a white person talk to him the same way that I would let a Black person talk to him, because race, as socially constructed as it is, he still is a part of that Black experience that I just think needs to be heard. And I think Black people can learn from, what it was like to be white passing and risk your life to go down and get your family. And like, maybe my brother should have heard those stories growing up so he could understand.
But regardless of color, folks can still be soft on racism and contribute to that. And I think and I think that's the difference. I don't think anyone was I wasn't calling him a racist. I don't know if Ominique was. I think what everyone was pointing out was that entire board was operating in spaces where they were soft. They were sort of like soft on stuff. Like, there were times that people were like, "No, racism is bad," and then those same exact people, every single one of them, at least in my opinion, and my opinion's a dumb, dumb in this, like. My opinion is probably least valid in the room right now But what I'll say is that, like, I was very disappointed that I saw all of these people that like at different points, many of them were like, yes, racism is bad and like white nationalism is bad. And then I watched them also say things and do things in that meeting that softens that statement. And that's the unfortunate part, because it's not the dangerous person in that room wasn't Samson. The dangerous person in the room are all the people that are soft on it and support it and make it seem like it's maybe it's not so bad. Maybe like you had all kinds of people in the comments even that were like saying things that like sound smart and logical until you realize that what it's doing is like being soft on racism.
Right. I'll speak to that, because exactly what you're saying, like it's like the softening of what's really going on, right? So, like I said, without saying any names right now, I brought that super happy, fun America bullshit, like that website, and I showed that to a certain person along the supply chain, and they thought it was silly. They thought that website was silly, like nothing makes sense. And I'm like, no, this is racist, this is homophobic, this is hatred. Say it with me. This is hatred. And don't ever fucking like say this is anything other than that. And I think when we downplay those and we don't use the right words and we soften it, was the other one, like being racially insensitive. No, you're being racist. We need to like be firm with those words and let people know, like straight up, this is racism. This isn't racially insensitive. Like, nah, man, because that's what gives you that inch, and all it takes is that 1 inch. You catch somebody like that's in a vulnerable position, and this is what I'm saying. Like Dube, you're not going to win that battle because this is something that's within all of us Black folks. That's the colorism side of us. And I had this conversation at Ebony. I got to get you guys at my next summit. I got to get you guys at my next summit, because these are the hurdles that we have to clear if we're going to be able to really unite economically. We got to stomp out homophobia within the Black community. We got to stomp out like a lot of these things that were pushed upon us by the Black church. We need to talk about that. Like straight up, these are like real things we got to talk about. Because a lot of this stuff was pushed upon our culture through the Black church, which was an offshoot of what they taught us. like come on, we gotta have these like real conversations about that and realize that we are very, very, very different. We're all different shades here, and we all have our own individual traumas. And that's what I was saying. Like, that's why we're not going to get through this stuff like one generation, two generations. It's going to take 2-3 generations, because we have 400 years of pain in us and no identity before any of that.
And just as full disclosure to all of you, because I never talk about this, at least certainly on the show. So I spent 2 years with Masscan trying to extort money out of me. I spent 2 years of them bullying me and treating me like bill collectors at public events. I spent 2 years of them in writing to people in the industry, telling them not to associate with me. I had one of their board members physically threaten me. And then when I was talking about it, he threatened to sue me frivolously to stop my EE application within the state of Massachusetts. Knowing that, he put that in writing. He said, I'm going to sue you. I'm not going to win, but it's going to tie you up in court, and it's not going to let you start your cannabis business. And he did this as a board member, acting as a board member of Masscan.
A board member current, or somebody
who's recently stepped down?
Well,
apparently,
that's why I didn't want to keep on digging down that rabbit hole. Because I knew some extortion was next. I knew some like more government people were in there, and I told them like,
yeah, they made a business relationship with me at zero cost. I was providing them a free after party at zero cost to them on a Sunday. On a Sunday, nobody throws after parties on a Sunday. At the end of a weekend. So I wasn't going to pay for that. They came back 3 days later and told me I had to pay them a mandatory donation. And they did this knowing that I had already sent out decks to multi-state MSOs looking for like sponsorship and stuff. Then they also told me that I had to refuse Mike Crawford from actually attending the event. There was about 6 times that they came back to me and changed the tenets of the agreement with me. They never did anything they wanted. And then afterwards, they had the nerve to come to me and say, oh yeah, now we want to collect on the $1,500 mandatory donation that we instilled into the agreement after we already started. After we knew that we already had you between a rock and a hard place.
What you're telling me right now.
And this culminated, by the way, this culminated in a physical threat in front of a whole bunch of people, physically threatening me with multiple witnesses, not just him, with multiple witnesses.
This is where my passion came out.
And then when I was saying, hey, this guy physically threatened me, he wrote to me in writing and said, if you don't stop doing this, I will sue you, and it will block not just you, but your partners from being able to enter the cannabis industry as an economic empowerment applicant. And by the way, let's also talk about the last time that I went to the State House, and they were speaking inside the State House, that the only Black people that they had speak on during their event were people that had a fiduciary relationship with one of the board members. In fact, other Black people refused to go to that event because it was so slimy and weird that they were suddenly inserting the Black folks that they had a fiduciary relationship with. Let's also talk about how 2 years ago at the Freedom Rally, they exchanged with Dr. Uma, they exchanged value so that her racist brother could have a booth spot in the educational village, where he was going up on stage and saying racist shit against Elizabeth Warren, who happens to be a female politician here in the state of Massachusetts.
Hold on, wait. I was at that rally. I didn't hear him say anything racist. Sorry,
No, that dude is just that dude. Her brother.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I know he was running for office somewhere, and with Dr. Uma, she is in the cannabis industry. We didn't even know that was her brother until, I didn't know. And I just wanted, we all have stories, I'm sure. Yes. I'm sure we have all, listen, we could, I kind of know a little backstory of the little party. The only thing I'm going to say about that is it was right after the Boston Freedom Rally, the third day. You had the party on the last day. None of the Mass-Can directors went because we were cleaning up the commons.
Yeah.
And I wasn't involved in it, so I don't know. But it's just kind of I'm sure there was a lot of maybe mismanagement, and there was a lot of drama and issues. I'm sure everybody knows that about Mass-Can.
Seems to be a running theme with Mass-Can, but go on.
So I just think I get what you're saying and stuff. I don't want this. That was why I was a little bit cautious of coming on. That's why I don't like to be in certain settings like this, because I don't want to bash people or, because we all have faults. None of us are perfect. You know what I'm saying? We have all fall short of his glory, if we want to take it to church,
Well, I think it's the perfect time for this shit to be broken up though. That's the perfect reason. Mass-Can is a monopoly. They run everything. So whoever's in charge of that shit is the boss. And but it sounds to me like an outsider, because LA is very similar. We can have a LA specific episode later, because it's very, very, very similar. And this is why I was in this awesome place when I got in on the legal side of cannabis, because I was selling software. So I worked with everybody. I have friends at high and low places, work with the trap, and I work with the legal guys, and I was able to see everything. And that's why I didn't want to get in with any of these organizations, because they were all like that. And I thought normal was going to be different. But what I'm seeing from the outside, this the Ozarks y'all got going on out there. You need to break up. You need to break up that Mass-Can and have mandatory other trade organizations, and let them catch up before you even let them even do anything out there, because it just sounds like some straight up organized crime.
And let's be real, my story's not unique. If you think that I'm the only person that's run into stuff, please, there's dozens of people.
But I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate you saying it now. But I think at one point you said that you hadn't said it before, and that's what I think a lot of again.
Oh, it's all been said before, Jordan. You just weren't privy to it. And Rico's is on the West Coast, so he wasn't privy to it either.
I'm saying it or not, maybe it's on here. All I'm saying is what I'm hearing is oh well, if you knew these things about people, are you telling Black people that? Meaning, are you methodically saying, this person threatened me, be mindful? Are we because that's not bashing anybody. If you are
the local Black folks that are at Mass-Can, potentially at Mass-Can's mercy, most of them were told. It's also a difficult thing though, because I think that the Black community here in Massachusetts, in the cannabis community,
I guess what I'm trying to get to is there are ways for you to use your trauma that you experience to enlighten Black people and do it in a way where it's
I've been first of all, he was a part of it.
I was part.
I'm not saying that you're not.
And second of all, I've enlightened the entire cannabis community about it. I have been actively doing that, which is why there's a bunch of racist people that don't like who I am, because I've been, and it's not just because of their racism, it's also because of their duplicity, it's also because of other things that they've done too. And that's why when we came to this point and we're talking about racism, I didn't bring any of that stuff up, because it actually sort of taints a little bit. Instead of me just being hey, they're racist, and what's the deal? What's the deal, everyone? How do you feel about this? And let's talk about this.
I mean, call them racist, but they sound like shitty business people and someone you don't want to make a deal with, period. And that's where it's as a white man, you can warn people and communicate that to people so they don't have to learn that themselves.
I've been trying, but what happens?
We're imperfect in that, and that's where it's just it's okay. I know you're doing it now. That's why I'm oh well. If this is what you've been saying all along, and this is then you don't have anything to worry about, because people will back you when because I saw him like toxic masculinity.
No,
I don't play this voicemail.
Jordan, you don't understand. Most of the white cannabis community doesn't back me on it. They're actually like, why don't you just shut up about it?
We like to pick sides. The cannabis community, we pick sides on a lot of different issues.
No, it totally, and it's just clear that a lot of people pick the racist side. That's all. Like, I get it, you know.
I don't know.
And the duplicitous, and not just racist, the bigoted side.
And the whole racism, I don't know how it comes hand in hand.
So can I, as an outsider,
because when they did this toward Eric, and they're run by white nationalists, and this involved Eric. It wasn't just me; it was Eric as well. So that means it's racist.
You hit me.
It was more about money. It was more about the greenery. It was more about miscommunication as to what was going on. There was money involved. I know you guys lost money behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the full story. Again, that was my early days of MassCan. That was when I had just came on. I'm sure there's a lot of personal, like I said, you take it personal, so you see it in a certain way, and that's fine. One thing that I want to note, and I think that is very important moving forward, is we all have to just take responsibility for our own actions. If everybody just said, hey, I can't control what you do, I can't control what you say, I can't control that. I can only control what Shannon does, how she presents herself, how I can move forward. That's it. I can't, even watching the MassCan video, I was like cringing, like, oh my gosh, like I don't want people to think that I was, condoning this type of behavior and stuff, but I can't control it. All I can do is sit and watch and respond. So if we could, the whole world, and this isn't just about, just in general, if everybody could just wake up and say, how can I be a good person? If I'm a good person, and then Jordan wakes up and he decides that he's going to be a good person today, if Mike is going to decide then guess what? We might have a good society. But if we keep on saying, oh, he did this to me and she did that to me, we ain't going to get nowhere.
I want to say something, because that's exactly what I was going to say as well. Like California, right? And everybody says land of in the industry out here, land of snakes, fakes, and flakes, right? And I got into this, and bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like fresh out of corporate America, and I was expecting to see a lot of I don't know. I was expecting to see some real shit, and I didn't see that. I saw a lot of the bullshit corporate stuff first, and then when I got on the ground, I started to see some grimy shit too. And but there's good people in the corporate side, there's good people on the street side, and vice versa. But what you eat don't make me shit. That's my favorite Jay-Z line right there. And I tell people like straight up, like, I had a bad business dealing with this person, but if you want to do business with them, go ahead and do business with them. If you have questions about this, I'll tell you, but that doesn't matter to me. And this is just my mindset after doing a couple of bad deals with people. I just feel like I don't have time to slow down and watch you fail with these people I told you that are going to screw up. And that's why when Mike hit me with these links and everything, like right before my show, like smacking me upside my head with all this like white supremacy stuff, it's up to me if I'm actually going to look at that stuff, what I'm going to do with that information or not, right? So as long, I think it's our civic duty as good people. If you care about your fellow person, you respect them, you can dangle that out there. If they want to take it, they take it. If they don't, they were going to lose anyways. That's their fault if they go in there and they mess with these terrible people. I was like, you don't want to do that. If you ask me why, I'll tell you why. But I don't have time to slow down and tell you this long story about how these persons screwed me over and stole money from me. And if it's not going to be of value to you, because that's the worst thing ever is me telling you all this, and then I see you working with this person, and then like later on, oh man, I should have listened to you. Like I don't know how many times that's happened to me. Like, I don't have time for that shit no more.
Well, can I ask? Because I struggle with this where I feel like I blame myself for failing to communicate, and I'm trying out, like, for my well-being, how do you balance that? Because it seems like every time you talk, I'm like, okay, you care, but then it's like, do you feel bad like when somebody does, like, I don't know, like I just...
Yeah. I feel bad, but I stay focused. I have to. Like I said, my baby girl, my wife, that's my number one priority, and moving my people, and that's closer to this economic opportunity is number two. Everything else is a far third. Yeah, I do feel bad about certain people, and I do. I have a lot of empathy. I've a high emotional. I have a high EQ, and it's gotten me into a lot of trouble. Right, and it's not about me anymore. I think letting that get me in trouble is more irresponsible than anything else. I don't have time to romanticize about anything. I've been through enough shit in this industry where I just like call shit out as it is and keep going. Like, you can take this information, you can run with it, but I have to stay focused. And I know where my road is leading to, and I know I can help a lot of people with that. And if they don't want to get down, they don't have to get down. That's cool. I'll see you in 2021. But I have to stay focused right now. And I tell people straight up, it's no love lost. Like, this isn't the new Rico or nothing like that. This is the same Rico, realizing that when I was in corporate finance in 2007, I got in at the peak of the market. I know I missed a huge opportunity then. And I know what the opportunity looks like. We have a huge opportunity now, and people want to fuck with me. Come fuck with me. If you don't, like, I'll see you next year. It's like it's no love lost. I'm still the same person. I'm still the same loving person. You can see that side of me, but I have to stay focused. And that's why I have a team of people to keep me focused, because I'm very self-aware, and I'm aware of my emotionality and all that stuff. Like, I'm in touch with that side, but my team keeps me within the lanes, and I got to have people around me that check the shit out of me, right? I don't need to get that Kanye head. I don't need that, but I know that. But the thing is, I know that's inside of me, so I got to make sure I keep people around me that's like, no, this is what you got to do. Like, no, you can't do this shit. You can't fuck with them. Like, let's go. And I think that's what it's all about. You just gotta have that nucleus, right? You gotta have a nucleus, like people that flank you, and not just one person. You got like 2 or 3 people around you, different personalities, and you guys feed off each other. You can help each other out in situations like that. Like, early on in my career, I didn't have that. I got a team now, so yeah. Yeah, like
one
don't worry,
note that
I'm not all harsh.
No, one note that I was going to make that they did get right last night in the meeting was you do have to have thick skin. You do, especially in the cannabis industry. This shit is not easy, and it wasn't easy even before legalization.
Mm-hmm.
You had to have thick skin to be an illegal cannabis user, cannabis connoisseur, cannabis courier, whatever you want to call it. Before legalization happened, to be in the cannabis, that was one thing that was stated that I agreed on. I was like, yeah, you do have to have thick skin. Some people, and when you're saying having thick skin, it's not like saying that, you just have to take it and deal with. No, that means that you check them too. Somebody gonna come at you.
See,
let me say something about this, because when they mentioned the thing about bullying with Bill, me and Bill have got into it. But the one thing that I'll tell you did not happen is bullying did not come along with it. When he spoke to me, the energy that he gave me is the energy that I give back. Okay?
Yeah, I feel
when you say you have to stand when somebody's being a racist or somebody doing, you be like, yo, I am not the one. That was probably one of the only things that I agreed with on that call last night is, and you better be ready and prepared. Well, for me, I'm speaking for Shannon.
Right. Here's why I wish either you or, and I want to bring it back to like baby boy, because this is why I wish I would have known that he was Puerto Rican or whatever, because I didn't know that. And if I did know that, I would have totally had a different viewpoint with them saying that, yo, you got to have thick skin. Because in my eyesight, like me being over here, me being black, my wife being black, and we're seeing all this, I can't tell, that he is not white from just seeing this on the screen. And I'm just thinking that you got to have thick skin. I'm like, that's like coded language for if you black, get the fuck out of here. I was like,
Because that's why I was kind of like, whoa, but I was like, I had to think about it. You got to think about it.
Right. I didn't know that. That's why I wish in this situation, I wish he would have identified as being not white, because like them all saying that you gotta have thick skin, like in my head, like
a lot of even black men will tell me I need to have thick skin when they're being homophobic. It's like the male way of dismissing emotions, where it's like, oh, well, you're just not. And what was funny was then I'm like, well, you don't have thick skin when I like call you out. Like that's where it's like they don't turn itself on themselves and see it as oppressive, but also like pull yourself up from a bootstrap type of thing. So
right. This is what I just said. That's why you have to have a team that checks you and make sure that you are self-aware. Like you're not gonna reach like self-awareness like by yourself, right?
That's
you gotta
true.
have people people that you trust, respect, and love around you that in private spaces. That's what took me, because I'm a performer. So I like to be like, like project like certain things like while I'm in public. But you're in a private space, you're in a safe space with these people that you actually trust and you respect their opinions. Like you got to let yourself be aired out sometimes, and it hurts a little bit, but that's what love is, and that's why I really, with me personally, like I love having like a team of people around me that I can hit up, like, yo, I'm going through this shit. Like, am I wrong for saying this? Am I wrong for saying that? And they'll let you know really how it is, period. Like there's like you fucked up. You said this, like you shouldn't have said that, whatever. It puts everything in perspective. And I really feel like baby boy, like I want to talk to you, brother. Because I saw a lot of good qualities in him last night. I didn't even know that he was non-white. And
beyond that, when you speak to him, when he tells you his story, I guarantee you're going to be touched, because I know him personally. Mm-hmm. And he has gone through so much in his life. And it's sad, like, I hate to see like good people, because it's hard to perceive somebody through a screen. You know what I'm saying? And to really get the true, heart of a person. And I think it is important for you to reach out and, hey, what's up? You know what I'm saying? If anybody has any questions, you can, hit me up if there's any misunderstandings.
I would love that. I would love to have him on my Candid Boss Talks series, because that's the kind of stuff that we do. We talk with some of the most interesting people in the industry. It's like unfiltered, and we get some of these stories. And that's the reason why I'm in the cannabis industry, why I got in the cannabis industry, why I continue to do what I do. Is because I absolutely love hearing how different everybody's background is and how they got into this. Like whether you were had a silver spoon in your mouth, whether you were like a dirt poor, whether you're from the street, whether you were an athlete. With me, I had opioid addiction that stemmed from college football. Like straight up, I went to the team doctor. A sore throat. She gave me unlimited refills of Vicodin. Started partying with it, selling it. Like next thing I know, ruptured my Achilles training for the NFL. And I'm outside Wrigley Field selling weed so I can support my opioid habit. And that's just like, mine is just like one story. And then I talk to other people, like they have this crazy story. They got this story. And that's what I love about this industry. And it's everything about this plant. It brings people together. Like I always tell people, step into the cipher of life, right? Like get up in that circle, like for real. Like I would, and like a shout out to Michelle Alexander. You can't be racist when you're black, and what I mean by that is it's because racism comes from a place of power.
You can be discriminatory.
You can be a bigot. Yeah, you can be a bigot, and I was a bigot. I was straight up a bigot, like out of high school, because I was raised like that. My stepfather raised me like that, and the people that I was around like just harbored that negative energy. And the crazy thing is, I got to college. I started smoking weed with people who didn't look like me, and because it's cold, and we knew exactly when the testing schedule. When you're Eric, you probably know this. When you were a scholarship athlete, like we knew exactly when the testing when they were going to be testing us. Like it was before. right before we go into to camp, preseason camp, and then if you go into a bowl game, like right before the bowl game, and then if you were in the doghouse, like that's the only time you ever got like randomly tested at Northwestern, like if you're a scholarship athlete, like, and so we knew exactly what to smoke. If we smell some smoke, we hop in the cipher with all these other kids, and none of them look like me. Some would be white, some would be brown. That's when I had my first gay friends. And then you just like start talking, you start hearing other people's stories, and you start empathizing. And that was like, it broke down one layer of me that I didn't know I had. So that's what people need to do. They need to get into the cipher of life, like learn more about each other. And I don't turn nobody down. Like anybody who wants to have a conversation, I have a conversation, and I'll humble myself if I say some dumb shit. Like I always go to the tape, like straight up. Like, oh, did I say that? I apologize. Like, I didn't mean to say that. And if I did say that, I'll say it publicly. I fucked up. But we have to be courageous enough to fuck up like that.
To that point, like
take those chances.
That's beautiful. I think one thing, like, so I'm like asking, trying to figure out what PhD program I want to go into, and I've been asking other people, Black men in particular, in STEM, like, because I'm not used to STEM environment and like people not being a growth mindset to like explaining their feedback so that I can feel like you're not racist. And so I was like, he gave me some advice around a question of like that I think is applicable to the cannabis industry that I think white people in positions of power really need to think about the answer. Like if you're a man and you haven't thought about how you would ask like a woman, answer a woman employee about like sexism in the workplace or something, and you're just like, oh, go find a woman and I'm going to tell her. No, like you need to be aware of this. So it's like, as a white person, if I were to ask you, like, what are you doing to, like, how do you respond when somebody corrects you or challenges you? Or specifically when I like to say when a Black woman challenges you, because I like to see how they respond as if like they're perfect or that like they don't, or they'll just be like, wait, what? Like they show me that like they're aware that they have this bias and then they didn't anticipate it to feel comfortable to answer that, look, well, I am imperfect and I make active steps to create space to ask Black women how they are feeling. I don't do a very good job at it. We're hoping, you know, like figure out an answer, but then you have to back it up. But if you've never thought about it, and that's a privilege that I'm like, you no longer can have in the cannabis industry because people like they'll ask you, we're asking you the questions. And if you got somebody comfortable enough to ask you that question, to invest in you, to like say it to you, you should be thankful. And to the humility point, if you don't have an answer, it's okay to say you don't know. Thank you for asking that question, and then effectively communicate when you'll have an answer, the work you're going to do to get the answer. But like ultimately, it's okay to not know like that question. It's okay to not know something like that. What's not okay is not wanting to know or wanting to figure out or whatever.
And it's all about growth. It's all about growth and asking questions because that's how you learn the most, right? And I never had any of these white cliche analogies or anything like that until I got into corporate finance. But shout out to John Struer, the one liberal guy at our firm, my first firm that I was with. And he told me, he's like, you always got to be, you can, if you're the smartest person in the room, get the fuck out. Get out. Go learn some stuff from people that don't look like you, that don't think like you think. And I hated every second of that 10-year career that I was in that, and I wasn't myself. But when I got out of that, it armed me with so many tools on how to organize people and how to be business-like in this cannabis industry. A lot of the growing pains that you guys are going through in Massachusetts right now, and I was able to like put this and this together, and like you guys would be really, really great together because you need a dynamic team. You got too many hustlers on your team and no bosses, right? You got no structure, you got no hierarchy here, and you need to have that. Different people have different roles, and you got to play that, and you got to learn from each other. Like people at the bottom can learn from the top. People at the top can learn from the bottom. And the dopest thing I've ever done, and I'll tell you this, and I got to go to Mike, Freeway Rick Ross, right? Freeway Ricky. I learned about Freeway Rick Ross and then all the CIA, like I screwed him over, like all this stuff because I saw his face on a banner ad. I used to look at allhiphop.com back when I was in high school, through I was in college, because underground rap. I love underground rap. There's a banner ad that the real Rick Ross. And I was like, who is this? You ain't Boss. and I looked on it, I clicked on it, and I actually dug into this stuff, and I started reading, like, this is public information that we just gloss over, just like everything you guys have been going through, that's been out in the public, and we don't pay attention to that. Like, everything that we are caring about, this racism stuff that we're like focused on right now, like, the whole world is moving without us. And that was the whole point of my summit last weekend. Like, China and Russia have taken over the world, period. Like, we're worried about, like, Donald Trump tweeting and stuff. Like, nah, we need to get on this money, because there's going to be a huge shift in world leadership. Europe is already following China. Like this is crazy. Like we're still stuck on this. And what I personally believe is that Black people are in the way of Russia and China. So they don't give a shit about us killing ourselves right now. But if we position ourselves economically, like, the world, the globe is looking to them for capital, looking to them for all this stuff, and we can run our shit. And we don't. And the problem there with us only having 4.3% ownership in the cannabis industry is there is no 40 acres and a mule promised to us on the global stage. We got to get in this right now. We need to take advantage of these opportunities, and we need to stomp out all this bullshit, like racism, homophobia, transphobia, like all that stuff right now, and get to this paper, because America has never apologized for slavery, has never apologized for Native American genocide, never apologized for any of that stuff. And what we're doing right now in the streets, fighting against like these poor white people, like that's not doing nothing. We're gonna kill each other off, and we're going to be a byproduct when the next regime comes in. Like, American empire is over.
So hey guys, as we're
like, men have to learn to be able to have a woman in a position of power and leadership and be okay with it. Like, be okay with getting feedback from a woman. If you're not, good luck. Good luck.
So guys, as we're wrapping up the show, and I appreciate you guys being here. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll go first because I'm not from Massachusetts and anything. Yeah, my final thoughts, like, last night was kind of a shit show. Like, it did not reflect well on Normal. It did not reflect well on Mass Can, but it was a learning experience for me, being outside of the situation and being introduced to it the way that I was. And what I would say, you guys always have something on the West Coast if y'all need it. Period. If you need help structuring, you need help organizing, stuff like that. And I have no problem at all going in depth with who the good and bad characters are in our industry out here. And if you're down for that conversation, like on a one-on-one basis, I don't tear people down publicly unless you do something to me. And what I've learned over the years as an activist, because I was that cancel this motherfucker guy. Like, I'm down with all these people. When I got out of corporate America, and I learned very quickly that's not how things are run. This is why I was saying I was a capitalist, because this is a capitalist society globally, and we need to learn how to work with these corporations because they got that bag. Once this goes federal, like, all of these small organizations, all these small mom and pop shops, we're all done. So we got it. We're all done because we don't have enough money to survive. And that's the reality of the situation. And what I'll say is if y'all need any help organizing with people, linking people, like, on the West Coast, like, globally, any of that stuff, like, I can help people with that. And I'm not a broker. I don't do none of that. But I want to move our people forward in the right direction. So if y'all need that, hit me up. Much love to you guys. But I'm not even a Patriots fan at all, but like at all. But I love you guys. Did you play with my boy? Did you play with my homeboy Marquise Cole?
Marquise Cole.
He was on the Saints, right?
Nah, he was on the Pats. He was on the Pats for 2 years. He was on for a year and a half. He played for the Jets too. He played for the Broncos. Yeah, he's like my little brother on the team. Yeah, he was with the Pats, and I'm not a fan of the Patriots. I never have been, but man, like as a team. But I love the players, and I love you guys, and I love everybody up in the Northeast, man. And just please don't lose hope on this, and just hop right back in it. Don't give up. That's all I can ask you guys. Like, just don't give up out there. Just stay vocal and stay connected. That's the best thing about this pandemic is you can connect with people from all over the place. And if you guys need anything, just reach out, man. I got you guys. Much love. Thank you, Dube. Anytime you need me, I'm always down, even when I don't have time. Oh, I'm gonna shoot you a link for Canna Gather this evening. I do my weekly broadcast every Thursday at 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. And I'll give you guys free VIP passes. Everybody who messes with Disrupt America, you guys get free VIP passes to everything that I do.
Oh, awesome. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Love you guys, man.
Love you too.
Right. Love you too, man.
How about you, Jordan? Final thought?
I mean, I feel like I've said everything and I'm just repeating myself now. So really just, you're either anti-racist or you're not. And when you convince yourself that like that, and you start to feel that internal pressure of like, was that anti-racist? I don't even know what anti-racist is. Like, that's good. Keep going. Because at some point, you internally will normalize that something's anti-racist or not. And then other people will have to do it for you. But if you're at the point where you're not sure, find the right circle of people who can do that for you and acknowledge that it's not any black person's job to do it for you. And how we show appreciation and thank people and invite them back to the space to continue doing it is equally as important as you doing that work. So yes, you have to do the work internally, but you also have to be aware of the space you're creating while you're doing that work. So
awesome. Thanks, Jordan. And Shannon, how about you?
I just want to thank you for having me. I hope my perspective and as a former director of Mass Can. Another thing I wish that would have happened last night as well was an apology to Judy Foster, because that was blatant. Like that was a little crazy to me of how they would approach her. They called her. They reached out to her. She was minding her business. She was not trying to be on a, panel and then to try to censor and discuss what she can and cannot say. I wish that they would have been more apologetic towards that situation. I work at a law firm. When you're dealing with racism stuff, proof is really important. You gotta have clear, it can't just be he said, and that was pretty blatant, if you ask me. So I just wanted to make sure that I stressed that point as well. I hope that the invitation for Normal wasn't really that active when I was there in 2018, 17 and 18. So I don't know if they're going to create a new chapter and make it Black focused, woman focused, just Black, just Black everything, Black everything. I think that would be helpful. That would be a good start. And that's all I really have to say. Thank you again for having me. It was nice to talk to you again, Jordan, and it was nice to meet you, Rico. Yes.
I think I was muted. And look forward to having all of you hopefully on again to further the conversations. Thank you so much, guys.
Bye.
Thanks to all of them for coming on and hanging out with us for so long. I know that you. Yeah, I know my mic was off there. For a minute.
What I was getting to when I was talking to Ominique and Goldi, where I was getting to was that, you know, even though I don't speak up, you know, right away, as a person who has a word, I need to speak up soon, and I need to speak up fast. That's where I was going with that. I like to make sure I gather all my facts, but when it comes to like white supremacy and racism, there's no facts. It's either you is or you not. So that's where I was heading with that. But when I approach other things that aren't racist, and it doesn't involve white supremacy, and I'm trying to learn about it, that's where I become a listener and I'm a leader. But I fully understand racism and white supremacy. So that's where I need to speak up and use my emotions and make sure I'm understood and heard. So that's where I was going with that.
I think with the tone of today's show, I mean, should we just cut it, or you want to do your?
Man, I'm tired, yo. You been here forever.
3-hour show today.
That's crazy. Yo.
3.5 hours actually. Well, but I think people, obviously, there were a lot of people that had stuff that they wanted to say and conversations that I think needed to be had in general. I know the Young Jerks had a similar show the other week, and I think it went by so fast that there was just still stuff that was unsaid. And so, anyway, I appreciate everyone who watched today. I appreciate everyone who came on the show, all of our guests.
But it was a conversation that was needed. Yesterday, mass cans, the little emergency meeting was not, I did not feel good still. So that's basically what I'm going to say. I don't feel good. I don't feel like they care about Black Lives Matter. And it's a lot of work to be done. Period, point. People need to be more. We need to speak up more. I need to speak up more. I need to express myself more, and I will. So that's the end of the show. It's time to go. Peace.
Mike and Eric coming at you every day. Hell yeah, they got something to say. Talking about cannabis with all the guests. Don't you know they are the very best? Disrupt America. Disrupt America. Disrupt America. Disrupt America. Yeah, folks, it's a cannabis show. We get super high. Ratings, don't you know? Friends, join us. Come on the show. Tell every single person that you know that Mike and Eric, yeah, they're the best. Spread cannabis love. Man, they got some knowledgeable guests.